potentially doing very well. It has, of course, happened before, but I think at the moment, if it was someone more unexpected, then perhaps it would be someone like John Healey, even Yvette Cooper, people in those senior positions who still aren't talked about as definitely going to be the next option.
In the end, if Keir Starmer goes, Labour MPs want to elect somebody who will help them keep their seats, because there are a lot of Labour MPs with very small majorities. And with the greatest respect to John Healey and Yvette Cooper, I don't think either of them have the personality or the charisma to do what Keir Starmer patently hasn't done. Andy Burnham, on the other hand, does. Angela Rayner, on the other hand, does. Wes Streeting, on the other hand, does. So it is likely to be one of those three, isn't it?
Yes, but it does.
But Ed Miliband, you see, he's coming up on the rails.
Ed Miliband, I mean, he has said, he's denied that he wants to go for it.
Yeah, but it's like when you elect a new speaker, they have to be dragged to the speaker's chair.
Yeah.
I mean, if your country calls, if the calling comes, you have to take it, don't you?
I was speaking to a soft left MP a few weeks ago who said it would just be too silly. It would be too silly for Ed Miliband to become Labour leader again. And I think, they are someone who is a massive Ed Miliband fan. But the idea, because
with friends like those.
Well, I know. But they really, Labour MPs really don't want to have another election. They do not want to have a general election. If you had Ed Miliband, you appointed Ed Miliband, elected Ed Miliband as Labour leader again, and he was Prime Minister, the argument for not having a general election is much more difficult to make, because the country has already said to Ed Miliband, no, thank you, resoundingly. And so I think it would be much more difficult to avoid those calls for a general election with Ed Miliband. And
there's also a hilarious video doing the rounds on Instagram of all the occasions when Angela Rayner called for a general election when there were Tory changes of leader. So that will gain some traction should she stand, but we will see. Do you want to make a prediction? Do you want to nail your colours to the mast? Do you want to get off that fence and suggest what might happen?
No, absolutely. I think anyone who says tonight that they know what is going to happen is wrong. I mean, I said last week, I shouldn't repeat this, but I said last week that I thought there was going to be huge amounts of sound and fury and anger and upset and emotion after the local elections, the elections in Scotland and in Wales. But I actually didn't think that there was going to be a leadership challenge. I didn't think that anything like that was going to happen. And I just didn't see Catherine West coming. And I do wonder whether, had Catherine West not made that intervention on Saturday night, I do wonder whether we would be here. And I don't know the answer. And I've asked other people that today, and Labour MPs I've asked that question to don't really know the answer either.
Do you know it's National Limerick Day today? I didn't know that either, but William has sent in a limerick. There once was a PM named Keir, whose speeches grew more dull by the year. While taxes climbed higher and voters grew dire, he slipped chasing Farage of Clacton Pier. That's from William in East Sussex. I'm sure we can get better ones than that.
I think that's brilliant.
On National Limerick. I think it's okay, but it's not outstanding.
I think it's outstanding.
I used to do a trick on the For the Many podcast where Jackie would challenge me to make up a limerick on the spot. But I'm not going to do that. I did try one out on Aggie earlier, but she threatened to report me to HR. Shall I tell you, I don't know, this is developing into a comedy programme, but shall I tell you a joke that I heard earlier in the year, which I think deserves recycling tonight?
Please.
A Blairite, a Marxist and a Corbynista walk into a bar, and the barman says, "Hello, Andy." Don't you think that's good?
It's very good, Iain.
Oh, some people are never satisfied, are they? Aggie, thank you very much. As ever, see, wasn't she much better than Tom Baldwin would have been? I mean, for goodness sake. Right, we're going to come to your calls in a moment. Plus, we are going to be talking to a Starmer supporter, a Labour MP, who has publicly backed this letter that's been written in support of the PM this afternoon. It's 18 minutes past 7.
PM Under Pressure. Follow it live on LBC.
At the third stroke, the time from BT will be 6 o'clock precisely.
Today in the UK, 100,000 people will call 999. 3,000 will say fire service. 465 will say, I think she's gone into labour. And 1 will say, the cat is stuck up a tree again. And every second a BT employee will answer and connect those calls to the emergency services.
At a third stroke, the time from BT will be brilliant.
BT, behind brilliant things.
There's one green bottle sat on my fridge shelf. This green and white bottle that supports my gut health. Beautiful by nature, beautiful by name. It's the tastiest way to up my gut health game.
Beautiful Gut Health. Switch your yogurt to the UK's #1 kefir and give your gut and your summer a lift. Kefir is a source of calcium which contributes to the normal function of digestive enzymes. For verification of UK's #1 kefir, see beautifulguthealth.com/radio.
The following is from TfL.
My name was Luna, like the moon. I was 2 days short of my 17th birthday when I was killed. My killer wasn't a bad man. He had a rescue dog called Frank and rang his mum every Sunday. He wasn't a speed freak. He just thought it was okay to go a few miles an hour over the limit. But that was enough to knock me off my bike and kill me.
Speeding injures or kills over 1,000 people in London every year. Slow down. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Iain Dale on LBC.
19 minutes past 7. Jay says, Iain, I think you've become a Starmer supporter, a closet case Starmer supporter, and you just won't come out. Not joking. Well, I know why people are saying this. It's because when I was on Newsnight last night, I told Newsnight viewers that on my show last night, virtually every single caller supported Keir Starmer. And they clipped it up, which made it sound as if I was a supporter of Keir Starmer. If I tell you that I think Keir Starmer in the League of Prime Ministers is only marginally above Liz Truss, that probably tells you where I'm coming from. Do I think that he ought to quit? Do I think he ought to be deposed? I think his performance actually in this job so far has been lamentable. I completely understand why a lot of Labour MPs want him gone. But I do worry about the effect on the financial markets, which we're going to talk a little bit about later in the hour. Because if we have 2 or 3 months of political instability, I think there is a danger that the economic consequences of that could be stratospherically horrible. I can't put myself in the place of a Labour MP, but I know a man who can, and we'll be talking to him in a moment. It's the Labour MP, Perrin Moon. But first, let's talk to Mokhtar, who's in Westminster. Hello, Mokhtar.
Hi, Ian. How are you? If I may, I want to bring 2 points to the discussion. First of, the entire thesis of Labour since the election was, we are not a cult. We are different than the right wings and the fascists and whatever there is being called at the moment, and that we are a party for something, not against. And the entire mantra for standing for Starmer right now is the opposite of that thesis. We are all falling to support a prime minister just because he's against something. No one knows what this guy is for. He has been given 2 years to give a vision for the country beyond the technocratic achievements.
Well, he's actually had 6 years to do it since he became leader, hasn't he?
100%. And no one knows where he is taking this country beyond the risks that he keeps bringing on of reform, of the Tories, of whoever is his adversary at the moment. And it is, honestly, makes him completely unsuited for the job right now. You see,
just to add to your argument, he says he's the man to take the fight to reform and beat reform. Well, he's been leader of the party and doing these local elections and the elections in Wales and Scotland, which saw Labour councillors losing their jobs hand over fist, which saw Labour come third in Wales, joint second in Scotland, but having lost huge numbers of MSPs. So I'm not quite sure what his logic is that he's the man to take the fight to reform.
100%, and it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is us walking to the very danger that he is trying to fight against because of process. Today, the entire argument of the day is that the process, and if this is unique in British history, Britain had a succession of prime ministers in a very short period of time, from 1827 to 1835. We had eight PMs in 8 years. After World War I, we had a similar succession of PMs after World War II similarly, in great changes of society and macroeconomic climate, the reaction of politics in the UK is to move fast between prime ministers to get a new class of leaders that can meet the moment.
OK, Mokhtar, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Steve in Belfast says, evening, Iain. If you're going to talk about economics, how about discussing Farage's $5 million donation from a businessman outside Britain? Well, we did discuss that last night on the programme. It may come up in cross-question, but frankly, it's got not a lot to do with economics, has it, Steve? So I'm not quite sure what your logic is there. Right, Perrin Moon joins us, Labour MP for Camborne and Redruth, who's one of the 110 Labour MPs who've publicly supported Keir Starmer today. Perrin, good to have you on the programme. Why did you sign this letter?
Signed it because we have heard over the last 24 hours an awful lot about the group of people who seem to think that the best thing for the country is to plunge us back into the same kind of wheel of fortune with prime ministers that we have had under the Conservatives. There are significantly more Labour MPs who do not think that that is a good idea, who do not want a leadership change at this stage, who want us to focus on the public services, restoring the public services, restoring the economy. And I'm very conscious that this is in the context of a really poor set of local elections. And I'm not trying to hide away from that. The issue we have is that a lot of the changes that have been made are not being felt by people yet. So things like the minimum wage, the improvements in the NHS, the investment that's going into public services, people aren't feeling the benefit.
But that was the argument that Keir Starmer came out with this time last year. I mean, all of his arguments in that speech yesterday were essentially rehashes of what he said a year ago. And I think that's why you've got these 90 MPs thinking, well, we can't go on like this.
Iain, we only just increased again the minimum wage in April. So it's now gone up more than 10% since we came into power. We've got NHS waiting lists coming down. We've got we had six interest rate cuts, and we had significant growth way above expectations in February before the war in Iran, which, by the way, Keir Starmer stood up to Donald Trump, didn't dive
for
in
2 days
feet like Kemi Badenoch. No, we are not involved in that conflict.
Yes, we are. We're allowing American planes to take off from British bases.
No, to defend British interests when we're attacked. We're not going in and supporting the USA and Israel in bombing all parts of the Middle East. We won't get into that. And Nigel Farage and Kemi Badenoch, that's exactly
Kemi Badenoch did not say that, as you well know. Nigel Farage did, but Kemi Badenoch did not.
Kemi Badenoch said that we should be supporting our American allies.
Yes, by allowing them to use British bases. She did not advocate British planes bombing Iran. That's what you're suggesting.
The point is, Iain, that we could have gone down that route. We didn't go down that route, and it was the right thing to do. And here we are in a situation now where. And I just heard your previous point, where we have the bond market spiking. The cost of political instability in the UK is something we simply cannot afford at the moment. And the really hard truth of this, Iain, is that this is grinding, boring, grafting government. It's not kind of fantasy government, fantasy finances. It's not clowns diving around the place. We need a serious man in number 10, and that's what we've got.
You're right, but can I make
the way around that?
Can I make an analogy here? If you are a new company and you've created a new widget that you think is going to take the country by storm, I'm talking about the equivalent of winning a majority at a general election here. And you've got a chief executive who knows how to run a company and sort of runs it reasonably well, but you've got no one to do the sales and marketing. And that's the problem here, isn't it? And that you can point to various pluses that the government have achieved over the past 2 years, but the Prime Minister his personality doesn't lend him to explaining all of this to the electorate, and most of his cabinet can't do so either. And if you have got no sales and marketing department, any company is going to fail, isn't it?
In that particular analogy, I worked in the private sector myself, but government is completely different. I accept the point you're making, though, about the fact that our communications, our ability to communicate, I'm not going to spend 15 minutes reeling off the things that I think the Labour government's done really, really well. But I could. And the point is, we haven't got that message across to enough people. And I think that is we've made mistakes. We've made mistakes. Keir Starmer is not perfect. Our government is not perfect. What we're saying is we're less than 2 years into this parliament, and we are definitely heading on the right lines. We saw that with the stats that came out before the Iran war, and the idea that we throw things up in the air and do exactly what the Conservatives did is frankly ridiculous, and that is why I put my name to that letter today.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Perrin Moon, Labour MP for Cambourne and Redruth. He has signed this letter. If you'd been a Labour MP, would you have signed it? And what do you make of Perrin Moon's defence of Keir Starmer? Do you think that as of today, 7:29 today, Keir Starmer's in a stronger position than he was at 7:29 yesterday? But what's going to happen tomorrow? It's the King's speech. How can Keir Starmer stand up in the House of Commons with everyone trying to keep a straight face? What's he going to say when he proposes the Queen's speech and sets out the government's plans? He's going to get ridiculed, isn't he? And I can't really see, when you've got a quarter of his MPs, nearly, coming out against him, are they going to sit there on their hands? Because they can't really cheer him, can they? It's going to be quite a parliamentary spectacle tomorrow, which you will be able to hear live on LBC. It's 7:30. Let's get the news headlines from Amelia Cox.
4 ministers have resigned and joined more than 80 MPs calling for the Prime Minister to step down following last week's election results. Zabir Ahmed is the latest after Alex Davis-Jones, Jess Phillips and Miatta Fahnbulleh quit earlier. It's understood Health Secretary Wes Streeting will hold talks with Sir Keir Starmer tomorrow. But more than 100 backbenchers have thrown their support behind the PM and urged their colleagues to work together. Earlier, Sir Keir told his cabinet he would not be standing down and that the country expects them to get on with the job. LBC weather, wind and heavy showers moving in from the west overnight, staying dry in the far south, lows of 1.
This is LBC.
On day 3 of leftovers for lunch, have a day off. Switch it up with a double cheeseburger for $2.49 on the McDonald's Saver menu.
Leftovers left the chat.
Talk about Saver satisfaction. Served from 11 a.m. Price and participation may vary. Fees apply to delivery orders, subject to availability.
Take Irish ferries from Dover to Calais, where your pet travels in the pet lounge. You'll be barking not to. Irish ferries. See travel differently.
The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind is a bold and uplifting new musical based on the incredible true story of 13-year-old William Kamkwamba, who dared to dream big against impossible odds. Don't miss the West End premiere, playing now at Soho Place for a strictly limited run until the 18th of July. Book now at sohoplace.org.
Next.
Hi, just these, thanks. Do you do cashback?
Just need to check you're not a robot first. New security policy.
Okay.
How many traffic lights can you see out the window?
2?
No, that's wrong.
Right, well, obviously I'm not a robot.
That's what a robot would say.
What a load of malarkey. Smarty keeps things simple, like 80 gigabytes for £10. And on a rolling monthly SIM plan, you're free to leave any time. Less malarkey, more smarty. Search Smarty Mobile.
This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
7:32 on LBC. Iain Dale here with you until 10 o'clock. Now, we've heard the case for the defence for Keir Starmer from Perrin Moon. Let's hear the case for the prosecution. Tonia Antionazzi joins me, Labour MP for Gower, who's called for Keir Starmer to step aside. Well, in fact, she did it yesterday evening. Why didn't you do it on this show, Tonia? I'm very disappointed in you.
I had planned that, actually.
Did you?
I did think about it.
What scuppered it?
A sense of urgency. After the speech yesterday, I felt like it was just more of the same flim-flam, flannel, nothing's really going to happen. It's all the same. How many resets can you have? How many... it was just desperate. I mean, I was knocking on doors in the constituency on polling day, and, people were quite truthful, well, sorry, I voted Plaid or I voted Reform, and then you ask them why. And they're talking about policies, UK government policies. I'll give you, for example, one guy said, I voted Reform. I've always voted Labour. Why? I said, did you vote Reform? So I like Nigel Farage's policies. And I said, well, go on then. Let me know which one. Well, on immigration. And I kind of, well, that's not what you're actually voting for. So there's a great... He's had cut through and, been saying, talking about national policies, UK-wide policies, and then getting people to think that they're voting one for him. Well, that's rubbish. It's not how it works. And two, on immigration and getting people out of the country, and pulling the borders up. And you just think that's what is so frustrating, and that Nigel Farage is having cut through and our leader is not having cut through. And for all the hard work...
Keir Starmer, or indeed you, could have pointed out that the number of small boat crossings has come down quite substantially this year, that the number of asylum hotels has come down. I said to Perrin Moon that I thought Keir Starmer's major problem is that he doesn't have any sales and marketing department.
Yeah.
And whatever widgets he's managing to manufacture and sell successfully, the story isn't accompanying them.
Yeah.
But that's not just his fault, is it? That's the Cabinet's fault as well.
It's the people that support the cabinet, it's the comms department, it's number 10, it's the wider picture. The issue that Welsh Labour has, I'm not blaming Keir Starmer for the failures of Welsh Labour in the Senedd elections. It's a mixture of everything.
Well, Eleanor Morgan did.
She blamed him. Yeah, I think there's a bit of everything. There's a little bit of everything. Nobody is blameless.
But what about the idea that you should stick with Nurse for fear of worse? Because it's not clear to me what is going to massively change if any of the putative contenders actually inherit the throne.
Well, I think that the change is needed because we need somebody to actually make change happen and stand up and just do it and get on with it. Just get on with it. Look, we've seen two letters. Well, I've read, the two letters, one from Alex Davies-Jones, the MP for Pontypridd and the former Victims Minister, citing, the Hillsborough law. That's huge. We need to move forward. He's just not delivered. And Jess's letter was just outstanding because she is so frustrated and citing things, it was just so cut through. The disappointment is visceral in the party, and it's really disappointing that he hasn't stood down. Now, I know that we will disagree, and I disagree with Perrin. I know what a nice bloke he is. But if you're not having that cut through and you're knocking on doors and people just, they hate him, and it's wrong that they hate him because he's such a man of integrity, and it is wrong. But at this point, you just have to say to yourself, right, let's do it the orderly way.
It's like playing in a cricket match, though, where you're not even halfway through the innings.
You're right.
And you're sort of 46 for 5.
Yeah.
And then you think, well, OK, we could get Ian Botham coming in at number 6 and scoring a century. Isn't it too early to do this?
I don't think so. We've got 3 years. We've got to make that my constituents and everybody in the UK deserves to have and feel like their life is better and we've made a difference. You can argue that we haven't had long enough. You can argue and say it's 14 years and we are picking up the mess of the Conservatives. Yes, all of that is true. I've thought about this, but we really do need to shake it up.
Now, do you promise me that you're not going to give me a flannel answer to the next question, because you're not renowned for flanneling?
It depends what it is.
Do you know what? I'm fed up I was on Newsnight with one of your colleagues last night who's saying similar things to you, Jonathan Hinder, was it?
That's correct, yeah.
And Victoria Derbyshire asked him, so, OK, well, if you don't want Keir Starmer, who do you want? Oh, well, I want to see what they've all got to say. I thought, you utter idiot.
Well, he's not an idiot.
Well,
Don't be
OK,
mean.
I'm being mean. But
I'm not going to give you a flim-flam.
No, well, who do you want to take over then?
Right, well, if it was my choice, I would want it to be Darren Jones. If it was my choice, and if Darren wants to stand, because I've seen him in action.
That's a new one.
In the base. Well, I did say it this morning. I just think he is he's a leader. He has got great ideas. He knows how to handle people. He's a great orator. He's got a good backstory, and I do really like him. I don't know whether Darren will stand. If he does, then I'll put himself forward. If he does, then that's great. Wes Streeting, I think he's great as well. He's got the character and the personality and the drive to do it, and he's very organised, obviously.
But the left hate him, don't they? Because I don't get the sense you're a particularly factional person, but a lot of people in the Labour Party are, and there are people who will vote for anyone but Wes.
Maybe, but that's where we are. I think he's very competent. This is not. I was listening to Margaret Hodge on the Today programme earlier this morning, and she was like, "This isn't factional," and it isn't factional. You've seen the names come from across the party. This is not the right of the party wanting to get rid of the left of the party, or vice versa. Which is why we are doing this for all the right reasons.
Do you not think, though, that it is about time the Labour Party had a woman leader?
Yes, I do, but I don't think we're in that position at the moment. I backed Bridget Phillipson. I know it was Bridget and versus Lucy for deputy leader. But, yes, but I don't know who would step into that. I'm a big fan of Shabana Mahmood. If she was to, I might consider her.
Angela Rayner?
No, look, Angela, no, is not for me. But, she's a great character, great woman, cuts through. I don't think she'd be a popular choice. Generally in the UK, I'm looking at everybody. I'm looking at my constituents that don't vote Labour. I'm looking at what we can deliver, and I'd at this moment in time, I can only see it being a male leader that replaces Angela, and not Angela, sorry, that replaces Keir. Sorry, and I just don't think it is somebody like Angela. But but again, Iain, that's my personal opinion.
And going back to Wales, what do you make of the new First Minister, Rhys Purewath?
He's all right. He's Plaid Cymru, he's not my party. I think he's a very good orator. I think he has character. I've played rugby with him.
Have you?
He's on the Commons and Lords rugby. He's on the Senedd rugby team, and when we've played the Commons and Lords, we've played together.
So you have actually mixed teams?
Yes, yeah.
I've never seen that before.
I didn't divert the conversation into rugby on purpose. No, I'm making a point. No, he is, look, Plaid Cymru, I really do hope are able to make good progress in Wales and follow on the great work of the Welsh Labour Party, and we'll see how that goes.
Well, Tonya, thank you for coming in.
No problem.
It didn't matter that you didn't sort of come out on the programme yesterday, because we actually got Charlotte Nichols too instead. So
all right, excellent.
She was your replacement.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Tonya Antonazzi, Labour MP for Gower. Right, let's go to your calls again. John is in Sandbatch in Cheshire. Hello, John.
How are you?
Hi.
There's one thing we need. Starmer was unpopular when the Labour Party won. He's been unpopular every day of the week since. He's unpopular now, and he'll be unpopular tomorrow. He'll be unpopular the day after. Nothing will change with that bloke. He's determined to hang on like a dead piece of wood. And the Labour Party MPs need to get some intestinal fortitude and say, you've got to go, mate. They're not saying that.
Well, 90 have, but we have to remember there are 403 Labour MPs now. So fewer than a quarter, or less than a quarter, have actually pledged to do this. And now we've got this letter with more than a quarter saying they want him to stay. But that does mean that if you exclude government ministers, there's still 100 MPs that haven't nailed their colours to one mast or the other, which I think is very odd.
Well, what gets me is that they they get £96,000 a year. They can kiss that goodbye in 3 years' time if they keep him, because nothing will change. The dislike of him will never change. He's disliked, and all they can walk away with the money from the Parliament, $96,000 a year. It's like a lottery win for ordinary people like me, and they don't seem to grasp that fact. If they want to stay in government, they need to pick the person who can do it for them.
OK, John, thank you very much indeed. Andy on a text says, what is canvassing, which Tonya Antonazzi was talking about? Well, it's at election times, or indeed not even at election times, when politicians or representatives from political parties knock on your door to ask either how you're going to vote or what the issues are that concern you. And they make notes, they go back to their party headquarters, you're fed into a computer, and then on polling day, if you're a supporter of theirs, they then come on and knock on your door to check that you voted, or they'll come back to you if you raise a particular issue of concern in your area. Richard is in Brentford. Hi, Richard.
Ian, I can't believe how naive the Labour politicians are, nor how superficial you guys in the media are.
Oh, dear. Go on. Go on, hit me with it.
Okay, well, the Labour people, they haven't got a candidate. They're not united behind someone who can replace him.
Well, it's very rare that any political party has one candidate and there's a coronation. It does happen, but usually it's a good thing for democracy to have a choice, isn't it?
But they've thrown us into this crazy situation where the markets are starting to increase the cost of borrowing and so on. So it's going to make it worse for all the poor, people who vote for them that they're so worried about. It's just pathetic. They haven't got a single candidate that's going to replace Starmer. I'm not his biggest fan, but we need to put it into context. He's actually done quite well on the world stage. He's handled Trump amazingly well. He's got us closer to Europe. They're making progress. They're not... Like you say, they're not proclaiming it, but they are making progress in education, in all sorts of areas. What are we going to get? We're going to get Angela Rayner. And what are you guys in the media going to do to somebody like Rayner or Streeting? You're going to castigate them just like you've done with Starmer. What do they think they're going to replace him with?
Well, it's an interesting way of putting it, because I don't think the media have done anything like that. If Keir Starmer has done something good, I praise him for it. And there are plenty of examples of that. And I get a lot of criticism praising him sometimes. But if he does something that I don't think he's done very well, I also say that. I mean, isn't that what you want?
Do you listen to Nick Ferrari in the morning?
I do. Well, I don't get up early enough most of the time.
Let me give you one example, Ian. Think back to the criticism Starmer got for those glasses.
Yeah, quite right too.
Hold on. What was that? 200 quid? 500 quid?
No, it was £20,500 for suits and glasses. When he was the first to criticise Tories for doing that sort of thing, and I think that's when the scales fell from people's eyes.
What about Farage and £5 million?
Yeah.
How does that compare?
Well, we've been talking about that many times on the programme over the past week.
You have not given it the £5 million against 500 quid. It has not achieved the same that degree of criticism.
Well, I think it has all over the media. You just obviously haven't bothered to listen to it.
That's a lie.
Well, I mean, I don't see how you can say that either we as a station or I as a presenter or indeed any other media organisation hasn't been talking about the £5 million donation.
You are totally anti-Starmer and you're totally anti-Labour. Nick Ferrari...
Well, yeah, and I don't hide that. I've always been anti-Labour. I've said I would never, ever vote Labour. I don't think Keir Starmer's been a good Prime Minister, and I'm not going to pretend that I do.
What do you say about what he's done with Trump and Europe?
Well, I don't agree that you say you eulogise him over Trump. I think he did.
Eulogise him.
Hang on, you asked me a question. I'll answer it.
Don't misrepresent me. I don't eulogise.
I think
he's done better than a lot of other people would have.
I agree with that, and I've said so many times. I think that relationship though has been shattered over what he did when he wouldn't let America. Hang on, can you just let me finish my sentence? Yes, I mean, you asked me a question.
But Trump is an idiot, Ian.
Well, you can call him what you like. I'm no fan of Trump. Oh, look, I'll stop this conversation, Richard. If every time I start speaking, you then interrupt me, and then I can't reply to what you seemingly want me to say. I don't believe that Trump is a good president. I never have done. I wouldn't ever have voted for him. But I think Starmer did a good job with him initially. But I think he ruined 18 months hard work when he wouldn't let American planes take off from US bases. And that has ruined all that relationship that he spent 18 months building up. That's my opinion.
Let them do that. You think we should be their slaves and that,
No, I don't.
Expose ourselves to their...
I absolutely don't. But sometimes you have to sometimes do things. I see Tom Baldwin's on Sky News. How nice of him. Look, I mean, you can. I mean, the media are always the whipping boys in these things. It's usually to cover up political little else time today doing that.
They don't weigh up the situation. They just want a headline. They just want to get at Starmer.
Would you, Richard? Given that you're such a fan of Donald Trump,
I'm not this.
No, I was being ironic. Listen to this. We've just had some comments from Donald Trump about Keir Starmer as he prepared to head towards Air Force One. Stop interrupting! For his trip to China to meet with President Xi. Trump has said regarding Starmer, my advice to him has always been open up your oil in the North Sea. You got one of the great oil finds anywhere in the world and you're not using it. They're not allowed to use it, and it's one of the best in the world, amongst the best oils in the world. Open up your oil in the North Sea and get tough on immigration. Europe is being very, very hurt by immigration all over Europe. Asked whether the Prime Minister should stay in office or quit, Trump said that's up to him. But I told him I told him from day one, you're getting killed on energy. You're windmilling your country to death. Open up the North Sea. You have one of the greatest sources of energy in the world. Well, I'm sure we can all thank President Trump for those words of wisdom, and I'm sure Keir Starmer will appreciate them massively. Richard, thank you very much indeed. It's 10 to 8.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
This is a Prime Minister who came to power promising to, quote, end the political chaos. Where did it all go wrong? Let's turn first to Lionel Barber.
When Keir Starmer announced that there were going to be welfare cuts and then reversed them because of opposition on the back benches.
Simon Lancaster, who is a speechwriter and author.
I would reel it back to actually the first couple of days after he became leader.
Let's get to the calls.
For me, it was when he first started bidding, basically, to be Prime Minister.
There's no trust. Policies don't cut through because no one's really listening. The first budget from Rachel Reeves and the increase on the national insurance.
From all fronts, you've got foreign policy, you've got spending.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
At John Lewis Money, we know your home is more than an address. It's the sunlight pouring in. Well, sometimes. The coffee on tap and the best spot on the sofa. It's why our home insurance is thoughtfully designed with 3 levels of flexible cover for the home use. Finance Limited is authorised for insurance distribution and credit broking by the Financial Conduct Authority.
Go all Irish to France with great low prices. With Irish Ferries, you can for less. Irish Ferries. See travel differently. T's and C's apply.
From countryside escapes to seaside breaks, and plenty of open roads in between, there's a Mazda for every kind of summer. Get 0% APR on selected models when ordered by the 30th of June, and keep your mind on the really important stuff, like trying to eat that ice cream before it melts. Search Mazda. Available on PCP when financed by Mazda Financial Services by the 30th of September 2026. Indemnities may be required. Terms apply. See website.
Drugs stay in your system longer than you think. So you could fail a police drug test days later.
Drug test positive.
Be banned from driving for a minimum of 12 months.
Come with me, please, sir.
And have a criminal record for years.
And turn to the side, please.
Which could cost you your job.
So sorry, I'm gonna have to let you go.
Is risking your future really a road you want to go down? When you let drugs drive, you lose control of your life. Think. Don't put drugs in the driving seat.
Mr. and Little Miss are back in Happy Meal and they're off on a road trip. Your little one can go somewhere exciting with Little Miss Brave, laugh all the way there with Mr. Tickle, or make up an adventure all of their own. On this road trip, anything's possible. Some fun, some food, it's all inside this Happy Meal. Until the 8th of June from 11 a.m. Includes one pre-selected book or toy while stocks last, subject to availability.
Iain Dale. Text 84850. This is LBC.
7:53 on LBC. Anastasia has issued a challenge to me. Get me a meeting with Donald Trump. If I was to get a meeting with Donald Trump, I think it would probably be with me, Anastasia, if you don't mind, because I'd quite like to quiz him on a few things. Not least the state of borrowing in this country, because the borrowing costs are apparently at their highest level since 1998, and that is in part due to the political instability that this country is experiencing at the moment. But could it get a lot worse? Excuse me. Michael Simmons is economics editor of The Spectator and joins me now. Michael, if there was a protracted leadership contest, how would that affect the economy?
Well, I think we're going to see what we saw today in the borrowing costs sort of happen repeatedly, because what's happened with the gilt yields today, and before we get into the Westminster aspect of it, it's important to say it isn't always the Prime Minister and the leadership. A lot of it is to do with the oil price, Trump's comments overnight about the Strait of Hormuz. But there's clearly a Westminster component. And I think the trouble is, what's happening is the people that own these gilt yields, own these gilts, are selling them because they're seeing there's going to be this political instability. There might be a move to the left economically. There might be inflation risk. And if everything had kind of gone through today, if Starmer had left, if the leadership election had kind of kicked off today, then that might be the only time we get this jump, and then hopefully the yields come back down. But with this kind of marching up the hill and then marching down again, we're potentially going to have more days like this every time it looks like the Prime Minister is clinging on. And why it's particularly worse in the UK is because we're not a country like Japan, where, you know, the Bank of Japan, pension funds, etc., tend to be the people buying this government debt. Our debt is owned by hedge funds, foreign investors who do not hold it for the long term. And when the price goes down and the yield goes up, they get out of Dodge. And that's why our yields move more than almost anyone else's.
So the rate in Britain at the moment is, 5.13%, I think, as of today. It may have changed since I last looked. What's the similar rate for France and Germany?
Well, France and Germany is a bit lower, so they're in the kind of 4-point range. And actually, what's really shocking is if you compare us to all the G7 countries, there's quite a gap now, which, you know, some people call the moron premium, between us and our European neighbours, which is kind of mad. Like, if you compare us to France and talk about fiscal problems, France should be in a worse state than us, right? They have a more unaffordable pension system than us. Anytime anyone tries to do any pension reforms, I mean, there's mass riots on the street. So you would think that investors would say, look, France, it should be in a worse position, should have a higher yield. But that's kind of baffling. And the only answers really seem to be, one, just how politically unstable we've become, but also how baked in inflation seems to be in Britain. Because remember, what yields really are, why people buy gilts, is kind of a hedge against inflation. And because we've got the highest energy costs almost in the world, both domestic and for producers, for manufacturers, we're just more at risk, which is why we're so far above, you know, France, Germany, countries like this.
So in the medium term, what would be the effects if our borrowing levels stay at this level or higher? How would that affect all my listeners?
Well, the problem is, ultimately, it just makes our current problems worse. It accelerates them. I mean, the OBR estimate that in the short term, a sort of 1 percentage point sustained increase in the gilt yield is worth about £1 billion in extra cost. And, you know, we talk about the government cutting taxes or maybe investing in defence. That's £1 billion that it's not going to be able to do that with. It's just going to have to pay it to these investors that it's borrowed money from. But the trouble is, this snowballs. So the £1 billion this year, in 5 years' time, becomes 10 billion. So it's not that we're going to have this crisis where we literally run out of money. It's that every successive government is going to have much less kind of room for manoeuvre, whether that's a right-wing government that potentially wants to bring down tax or a left-wing government that wants to go on a massive investment program. They're just going to have less room for manoeuvre. And the kind of net effect is every time we have a new crisis, whether it's a pandemic, an energy crisis, a war, whatever it is, we're just in this more and more vulnerable position. situation that just gets worse and snowballs each time.
Michael, thank you very much indeed. That's Michael Simmons, economics editor of The Spectator. Now, some breaking news from Stephen Swinford, the political editor of The Times. He has just written on his Twitter feed, Ed Miliband has told cabinet ministers that he is prepared to run for the Labour leadership if West Streeting triggers an imminent contest. The former Labour leader is understood to back Andy Burnham as Keir Starmer's successor if he's forced out of number 10 in the wake of a mass revolt by Labour MPs. But he's previously told friends he doesn't want the Labour leadership and is viewed as a potential kingmaker for a Burnham premiership. However, the speed of the revolt by Labour MPs, more than 90 backbenchers, government aides and ministers have now gone public, has changed his assessment. Two senior government sources said Miliband told cabinet colleagues he would be prepared to stand as the soft left candidate to stop Streeting from getting into number 10. Rats in a sack, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies to those of you that I didn't get to in this hour. We will get to you after 9 o'clock. On Cross Question in just a few moments' time, we have James Frith, Labour Science and also Cabinet Office Minister and MP for Bury North, Richard Holden, Conservative Shadow Transport Secretariat, MP for Basildon and Billericay, Ash Sarkar, Contributing Editor of Novara Media, and Annabel Denham, columnist for the Daily Telegraph. They are here to answer your questions on 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850, and of course you can watch us on Global Player, the LBC app and the LBC YouTube channel. Rats in a sack, I thought that was the Conservatives. That's from Jay on a text, or no longer it seems.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, Health Secretary Wes Streeting will meet the Prime Minister tomorrow as Sir Keir Starmer fights for political survival. They'll see each other, we're told, on the morning of the King's speech. 4 ministers have quit the government today and are calling on the PM to follow. More than 90 MPs want him to go after Labour's electoral drubbing last week. Labour MP Rachel Maskell says it's time for the PM to step aside.
But I think he needs to be honest to himself now. It's a sad day, but we do need to move forward. We can't have this melodrama of Downing Street. I talked about it when the Tories were in power. We can't have that now. The country has said that they wanted a different leader. They made that very clear last Thursday.
But more than 100 Labour backbenchers and parliamentary private secretaries have signed a statement backing him, saying this is no time for a leadership contest. Sean Woodcock is one of them and says voters don't want to see a government fighting among themselves.
If we start talking to ourselves and having this sort of psychodrama going on, frankly, the public are going to get sick and tired of us, just like they did the Conservatives, and we will see Nigel Farage into number 10 Downing Street.
The Prime Minister told his cabinet this morning he will continue to get on with governing. The cost of long-term government borrowing has risen amid the uncertainty, while the pound has fallen against the dollar and the euro. Chancellor Rachel Reeves earlier pulled out of an event in the City of London. Leader of Plaid Cymru, Rhyn ap Iorwerth, has been named the next First Minister of Wales. He won the most votes from members of the Senedd after his party became the largest on Friday. It makes him the first non-Labour politician to do so in the 27-year history of the Welsh Parliament. 10 people from remote South Atlantic islands connected to the cruise ship outbreak of hantavirus are to be brought to the UK in case they develop the illness. The group from St Helena and Ascension Island had contact with some passengers on the MV Hondius who developed the illness. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 4 points at 10,265. The pound buys $1.35 and €1.15. LBC weather. Wind and heavy showers moving in from the west overnight, staying dry in the far south. Lows of 1. A windy day with sunny spells and scattered showers tomorrow. These may be thundery in the north and east, but it will be drier in the south and west. A high of 15 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daisy Steele.
This is LBC. From Global, leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 8 on LBC. Welcome to Tuesday's Cross Question. On the panel with me, next to me, to my left, is Ash Sarkar, contributing editor for Novara Media, and she was just telling me about her best-selling book. Next to her is Richard Holden, Conservative Shadow Transport Secretary and MP for Basildon and Billericay. To my right, Annabel Denham, columnist for the Daily Telegraph, and to her right, James Frith, Labour Science and also Cabinet Office Minister and MP for Bury North. They're here to answer your questions. I guess it's going to be sort of along one subject over the course of certainly the first half of the programme, but it's up to you what you want to ask. 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850 and you can watch us on Global Player, the LBC app and the LBC YouTube channel.
Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Cross Question. Watch live on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Right. Okay, we are back. I thought we'd gone for a moment there, but I was panicking. Right, let's go to our first question. It is from Christian in Folkestone. Who's misjudging the public mood here? The Prime Minister digging his heels in, or the Labour MPs saying he should go? Now, James Frith, I'm kind of imagining what your answer might be to this, but surprise us.
I disappointed your producer who asked if I was to be resigning on air. Well, I'm not, Iain, at all. Look, I think the Prime Minister's right to be getting on with the job. It was a local election, not a national general election.
It was a national election in Wales and Scotland.
Indeed, and I think it's important that he started the speech yesterday in acknowledging the doubters, in acknowledging how much hurt there is in the defeat and the election results that were truly awful. And he confronted that. He wants to prove the doubters wrong, and he wants to be given that right of reply and a chance to get on with the job. To the point,
which is exactly what he said this time last year, isn't it? After the local elections, then, I mean, almost word for word.
Okay, but we are 2 years into a 5-year term and it's going to take some time to change. He's right that we need more urgency. I think he's also right to acknowledge some of the errors, that he himself hasn't concentrated on the storytelling and the emotional connection expected of our leaders and our political
It's not within
leaders.
him to be able to do that, is it? That's the problem.
Well, I don't share that view. I think there's
if it was, he'd have done it already.
I don't share that view. I think you can have priorities and a particular style. I think he has got work to do. He's got his work cut out, absolutely. But it was a very honest assessment of dreadful results in the speech yesterday. And there are a lot more MPs, Parliamentary Labour Party MPs, that are on record supporting him staying on to get on with the job.
Marginally more.
Well,
I mean, it's 90 to 110. I mean, bear in mind there are
backbenchers.
Yeah, well, there are 403 Labour MPs. You assume that people who are still government ministers support the Prime Minister, fine. But there are about 100 that haven't expressed any opinion. Now, it's reasonable to assume that the reason that they haven't is probably because most of them don't actually support the Prime Minister.
I don't think that's a conclusion that you can give evidence to. I mean, it's speculation. We were certainly out and about door knocking, trying to get the Labour voice and the Labour connection to our electorate. The fact that the results were not as we hoped for is definitely reason to reflect, to get better, and to explain what we are up to far better, because our communication has not been good enough. And I think the Prime Minister's recognised that in the statement he's made since those election results.
OK, Richard Holden.
Well, look, I mean, it's for James to say, look, it's all about the local elections, which I think we need to zoom out a bit. I don't think it is just about the local elections. I think this is about a number of other issues. I don't think all the Labour MPs going because of local elections. I think it's about a series of errors from the Prime Minister and a serious lack of leadership from the Prime Minister. I think you've seen us in the last few months, we've had to humble address the government to get all the documents out about Lord Mandelson, which shows that actually the government was saying one thing in public and doing something else in private. I think we've seen now, 20 U-turns on some major areas of policy, everything from phones in schools to all the way through to things like the winter fuel payments. These are big U-turns which the government has forced Labour MPs up the hill on and then U-turned on. And then we've seen, I think, the overriding thing which MPs have been having in their constituencies, if they're anything like mine in Basildon Basildon and Billericay, businesses on High Street saying, look, the employment tax for jobs, particularly hitting youth unemployment, is a real killer, plus business rates. For some businesses, that's going up hundreds of percent. So it's tripling in some cases on an annual basis. And that's absolutely hammering the economy. So I think right across the piece, it isn't about one set of election results. This is about decision after decision after decision, which is the issue at stake here.
I mean, you were a Conservative MP doing all the different leadership changes in the last Parliament. Out of sort of fraternal feelings for a fellow MP, I mean, what advice would you give to James given the experiences of the Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak changes? Yeah,
look, what I would say on that is that actually, this is about doing what's in the national interest for the country, and you've got to make that determination yourself as an MP as to what that is. And if you genuinely believe that Keir Starmer is the right person with the right plan for the country, who's communicating with the public and has got the right vision, despite all of the U-turns that we're seeing, despite the economic headwinds, despite the fact we're now seeing government debt borrowing rates at the highest rate since 1998, despite all of those factors, then double down. And for the next 3 years, stick by your side. But if you don't think that, then you've got to ask yourself, what is in the national interest? Is it the national interest to get somebody else in? And where do you want that to go? And I think that's your call.
Presumably, from your own party's interest, you'd quite like Keir Starmer to stay.
Well, that may well be the case, actually. Keir Starmer is clearly a massive drag on the Labour vote at the moment. He came up on almost every doorstep as a negative in the local election campaign. However, this isn't about that. We've got 3 years before the next general election, probably over 3 years. It's going to be likely to be July, maybe even August 2029.
Come back on that?
So there's a long way to go before we get there.
And just finally, before I come to Ash, do you not fear, though, that if this does go on for any length of time, we've already got the highest borrowing rate since 1998, that this could provoke a real economic crisis?
I think the real issue here is that when the Prime Minister couldn't face down his own MPs over not increasing welfare spending about a year ago, that was the start of all the problems he's faced. He had to U-turn on that, and that basically told his MPs they could do whatever they wanted, and it's created huge instability. And that instability is baked in as long as Keir Starmer is Prime Minister, because he will U-turn on every policy going. That's why since then we've seen 20 U-turns, right, on a huge variety of policy issues, because he has now lost the authority and control of his MPs. So him staying is the instability factor now in the country.
Now, Ash, I know from our previous conversations you've never been a great fan of Keir Starmer, but is there sort of a bit of sympathy for him deep in your heart?
I wouldn't say that's sympathy, but I think it's wrong to individualise the problem of political volatility to Keir Starmer. Volatility is the new normal in British politics. It's been a very long time since we had a Prime Minister see out their entire term. And I think there are structural reasons for that. One is that the economic model in this country is clearly not working. Keir Starmer promised growth. He had no real mechanism to deliver that. He's been at the mercy of external events, and he's not had an animating vision of his own. And I think that's because he's fundamentally not a political person. He just wants to stand at the big lectern. He's got no ideas of his own. The second thing is that we've got five-party politics as a reality, but it's happening in a first-past-the-post system. And I think that that's very difficult to contain. It's going to be very difficult for any government, I think, to keep the faith of the public under those circumstances. And I would just like to disagree with you a little bit about what the turning point for Keir Starmer was. I don't think it was the big rebellion over changes to personal independence payments. You saw his polling collapse when he tried to make changes to winter fuel allowance. And I think that tells you something about his political antenna. It's always a bad idea to go after pensioners because they vote in vast numbers, right? Nothing else to do during their day other than vote. It's a really bad idea. But because he'd outsourced so much of his political thinking to a very narrow faction of the Labour Party, the Labour right, that tend not to be super representative of the Labour membership. They might have a strategy and a theory of change, but a set of opinions that I don't think loads of people hold out there in the public, that I think that Keir Starmer found himself exposed. So yes, there are very personal weaknesses to him, and I think that lack of politics is what you boil it down to. But there are these bigger structural issues that I don't think a change of personality at the top is necessarily going to resolve.
Where are you politically now? Have you jumped to the Greens? Because a lot of people in your kind of area of politics have.
I'm a member of no party, and what I will say, even though it's a secret ballot, I voted one Green candidate and one Labour candidate in my ward.
That's probably a Liberal Democrat. Annabelle.
Who's misjudging the public mood? Undoubtedly, it is Keir Starmer. What we saw last week was not your typical midterm elections. This was catastrophic for Labour. It was a thorough rejection of Starmerism, insofar as that can be defined, across England, in Scotland, in Wales, where they lost power for the first time in a century. And what we learned during the campaign was just how unpopular Keir Starmer, the man, really is. He is uniquely and intensely disliked from voters across the political spectrum, and there's no way that he can recover from his current position. He fundamentally will not change. No Prime Minister has really changed whilst they have been in Downing Street. Keir Starmer certainly won't, and his big problem is that he had this Ming vase across the Marble Fort strategy before he went into Downing Street. And on arriving, he just continued to carry the Ming vase. He never set out a vision. He never articulated what his agenda was, what it was that he wanted to achieve in power. The only sort of caveats to all of this really are that for all of the alacrity with which Tory politicians are insisting that Keir Starmer resign, I think we need to consider that if you are on the right, the centre-right, what comes next will almost certainly be worse, be it Prime Minister Rayner, Prime Minister Burnham, Prime Minister Miliband. The way I see it, the only way that we escape a bond crisis is if Wes Streeting can find it somewhere within himself to build up the confidence to wield the knife and then persuade the required number of Labour MPs to back him. But I think that his path to number 10 is extremely narrow.
I mean, what do you all think about what Annabelle just said about the popularity of Keir Starmer? Because I have heard from many MPs over the past week that on the doorstep, he's been incredibly unpopular. There's a real, I mean, some people use the word hatred, which I don't like using about politicians because I just don't think it's appropriate. But he does seem to engender these feelings, and you must have heard this on the doorstep yourself, James.
I think it speaks. Thank you. I think it speaks to a wider societal issue. I think people's faith in politics is at rock bottom, and politicians, including local politicians that are out and about, are experiencing more and more hostility. I shouldn't think it is exclusive to the incumbency factor and being a Labour MP, though it does come with added spice seemingly now compared to when I was last in. And I think, as Ash has just said, there is a tendency to personalise in politics with the man at the top as he is, and I don't think that is fair. On the issue of the election and on the doorstep, Keir Starmer himself has acknowledged what I think he quite reasonably put as doubters. He would know that doubters is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that, and I do think it's incumbent on those of us in political life to speak up our faith in politics, our faith in our democracy, as well as recognising the level of the work it takes to serve a community, whether that's the local councillors that we've lost and the brilliant work that they were doing, very often at the mercy of national politics and the popularity of a particular leader at the time. And we should be, I think, talking up this country and the prospects of our democracy changing people's lives for the better. At the moment, it can feel too hopeless, and that gets personalised.
But you've got to say that Anas Sarwar was pretty vindicated by these results. He obviously called for Keir Starmer to go before May, and this was over the Mandelson crisis as it was raging. And the basic point he made is that if the Westminster Party continues to be led by Keir Starmer, Scottish Labour and Welsh Labour are sleepwalking into a disaster. Now, we saw that exactly play out. I mean, Plaid Cymru made a breakthrough that's been 100 years in the making for them. And I don't really understand how, as a Labour frontbencher, you're able to hold two things at once, which is the Labour Party should be winning elections, which is, part of your constitution. And also at the same time, we've got to keep Keir Starmer. I mean, it's not just been a bad set of local election results. And I don't think it's just been incumbency.
Can I just on that very point? Okay, because actually that's one of the reasons why instinctively I still am loyal to this Prime Minister, because he understood the need to win national elections. And having been elected at a time when we got absolutely thumped with Jeremy Corbyn leader in 2019, instinctively
he got more votes than Keir Starmer did.
We can all point to constituencies that weigh their votes, but we lose the country. That's not the system we're playing in.
Fair enough. You did voter efficiency like a masterclass, and like even I, raging lefty can say that. But going back to this issue of, was it a case of trying to keep the Westminster Party together, and you were all quite happy to sacrifice Wales and Scotland because you knew those results were coming where the SNP and Plaid were going to wallop you?
Definitely not, of course not. And, it would be insensitive to even think that. From my point of view, I appreciate that it's a provocation. Absolutely not. I think there is definitely damage done to from disunity. Anas said what he said. It's borne out. I think, as I understand it, the Prime Minister spoke to him the day after the elections and obviously has to have a relationship going forward if Anas is to stay on as well as the Prime Minister. But absolutely not. Look, there's huge amount of work to do. There's no ducking that, and I'm not sent out to defend indefensible. The humanity of this is that the Prime Minister recognises the doubters, recognises the unpopularity that he's confronting, but he doesn't want the country to spiral into despair that we saw so frequently with this kind of doom scrolling of leadership under the last Conservative Party, where literally at the mercy of the 1922 committee, the country would be in hock to their latest concerns.
But at least the then Prime Minister would meet with the 1922 committee. Apparently Keir Starmer's refusing to meet the representatives of the Parliamentary Labour Party.
Well, I don't think that's true at all. I think, as I saw on my way in, there are meetings planned from tomorrow morning in the King's Speech, which should be a pretty busy day, I would think. And to my knowledge, Number 10 are in regular contact with my Parliamentary Labour Party colleagues. In fact, one of my first jobs as Minister for Digital ID was to have a round table with the PLP chairs of each of the backbench committees in Number 10 at the say-so of the Prime Minister.
I'm tempted to ask how your job as Minister for Digital ID is going, but sadly we've got to go to a break.
I can take that. I'll wear that. Yeah.
And I do not understand how you can accuse Ash Sarkar of being provocative. She's never said a provocative thing in her life, have you?
Butter wouldn't melt.
Exactly.
It wasn't a criticism, mate.
I know, I was joking. 8:20.
LBC.
Hey there, it's your big McDonald's hunger calling. And it's not just any kind of hunger. It's the kind that calls for big arch. Start with juicy beef, cheddar cheese, and big arch sauce. Oh, and don't forget those crispy onions. Hungry? You are now. Served from 11 a.m. Subject to availability. Price and participation may vary.
Get unlimited video calls with vets from First Vet with Pets in a Pickle. For pet insurance policies as unique as they are, visit petsinnapickle.co.uk.
Buying a home on a holiday park was the retreat you always wanted. But then came unexpected site fee increases. And that was before the dramatic loss in value. If you bought a home on a holiday park in the UK, you may have been missold. holidayparkadvicecentre.co.uk could help you receive thousands in compensation. Text ASSIST to 78900. That's ASSIST to 78900.
Hey, Marcus Waring here. Cooking a balanced meal is my forte. But did you know most of us aren't getting enough omega-3 in our diets? Life often gets in the way. So I top up with 7C's Omega-3 Max Strength. It helps support my heart, brain and vision so I can keep doing what I love. 7C's Omega-3. Keep doing what you love.
Daily 250 milligrams EPA and DHA supports normal heart function. Daily 250 milligrams DHA supports normal brain function and vision. NDNS 2019-23.
Cross Question with Iain Dale. Watch live on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
8:22 on LBC. Let me tell you who our panel is if you've just joined us. James Frith is a minister at the Cabinet Office. He's also a Science Minister and MP for Bury North. Richard Holden, Conservative Shadow Transport Secretary and MP for Basildon and Billericay. Ash Salker, Contributing Editor of Novara Media. And Annabel Denham, columnist for the Daily Telegraph. Right, Ray in Hampstead is on the line. Ray, what would you like to ask?
Hi, good evening, Ian, and good evening, panel. OK, look, we're in a complete turmoil here. It's a complete mess. My question would be this. If the Prime Minister decides to go and we have a new Prime Minister, will the new Prime Minister obviously then have to get his team ready? Who is left to be competent enough to run this country, Chancellor of the Exchequer, etc., etc., because they can't use the old lot. They were useless.
Well, it'll be a mixture, I guess, won't it? Ash?
Well, look, one of the things that's been exceptionally depressing about this whole charade is that people have said, well, you can't change Prime Minister at this stage because who in the Parliamentary Labour Party could do it? Which, considering Keir Starmer had said the reason why we're blocking candidates in 2024, like Faiza Shaheen, is because we want the best quality candidates possible. If you're looking around and you've got a majority as, you know, the size of Texas, and you can't find a single candidate who you think could make a Prime Minister, it's a pretty bad showing.
There's several of them.
Well, no, I'm saying that that's part of the argument being made by Starmerites. And I think that one of the feelings out there in the electorate is that they're not looking at the PLP and seeing people who they think, yes, you would make an exceptional Chancellor of the Exchequer. Yes, you'd be an exceptional, Minister for Education. And I think that that's testament to the sort of narrowing of our politics and who gets in there.
Oh, just on that point, James, what message did it send to you and your backbench colleagues that Gordon Brown and Harriet Harman were exhumed on Saturday? Because, I mean, it doesn't sort of say that. I mean, normally you would think, OK, well, we want some fresh blood in. We want Keir Starmer has always said we want to go further, faster. Sure. We want to be innovative. Sure. And we want to, and the electorate wants change. How does that signal change?
I think that's a fair challenge. I mean, notwithstanding, Harriet is a particular supporter and hero of mine. I
suppose she could replace Jess Phillips now.
Gordon, I do not want to get into trouble with Jess. And Gordon, obviously,
well, you do know she's resigned.
I do. From a global finance point of view, there's obviously, I think, strong credibility still as to how he pulled the world together with the financial crisis.
But to do that as the first thing you do after that election defeat, it's just crass politics.
I think the optics of that were perhaps only half the story. What it should have also included was the embracing of new people from the PLP, just as quickly as the Prime Minister and Number 10 appointed some of the PPSs last night, perhaps.
Yes, that was very quick, wasn't it?
That was very quick, yeah.
And you sound as if you didn't really think that was a good idea.
No, it was just very quick. I mean, there's capability to move quickly, and that's what we need more of, actually.
It reminded me, Richard, of the last days of Boris Johnson when, 57 ministers resigned and he kept replacing them.
Yeah, I wasn't one of the people who resigned or replaced somebody, so I was just sat there in the background throughout that entire period.
Did you get the call then?
No. My call was later when I joined the cabinet. But no, I think the interesting thing at the moment around the debate is that the actual debate really is around Andy Burnham. Right, that's what the debate within the Labour Party appears to be at the moment. Should we? Are they not going to actually remove the Prime Minister because they're going to try and wait for Andy Burnham to get a seat or something, which seems a bit odd, as if contact with reality will suddenly make the next Labour leader, make all the questions, make everything easy, a bit like when Labour came in and thought, well, we're the nice people, so surely everything is going to be easy, and the world is going to be, there's suddenly all the problems the country faces are going to go away, and it's not quite worked out like that. I just wanted to pick back up on a little bit what you were talking about just before the break, Ian, around the that sort of hatred and things on the doorstep. I don't think the Prime Minister. I agree with you. I don't like using that language. at all, actually. But I think there is genuine, real, severe disappointment in the government at the moment. And it's interesting, for the first time, being a Conservative out on the doorstep. And Keir is an anchor is definitely dragging his party down. On the flip side, Kemi is definitely more popular than the Conservative Party brand is at the moment.
Amongst the 5 people who've heard of her.
Did you just call Keir Starmer an anchor? At least I hope it was an anchor.
He is an anchor, yes,
Right.
definitely an anchor on the...
The Conservatives didn't feature in our elections, Richard. I'm sorry to tell you, but they did not show up. The voters or the
Well, I mean, have a look across the country at the results, right? Labour lost vast quantities of seats. Well, I mean, we held on to a lot more than Labour did, I think, overall.
Yeah, but you lost 515 seats. I mean, that's a pretty poor performance.
The ratings and threshold numbers are very different.
Under the cover of a bad night for Labour, you did proportionally pretty bad.
Hang on, one at a time.
Yeah, well, let's have a look at the difference between now and 2022 results compared to now. You can see those London boroughs have huge changes in London. Very much us versus Labour. And outside, yes, you're absolutely right. The 2021 high watermark local election results, when we were on 43% in the polls nationally, and Labour lost Hartlepool. You're absolutely right. Worse than then.
Let's get back to the question.
Catastrophically worse.
Let's get back to the question, because Ray wants to know if the PM does stand down and we get a new replacement, who would be in that new PM's cabinet? And surely we should have a general election. That was the question. I mean, you're not going to call for a general election, Richard, are you? Given all of the arguments that you would have put forward when Labour did that. I mean, Angela Rayner, there's a video of her doing the rounds of calling for a general election.
I don't think it would make any difference, because I don't think, with the 400 plus Labour MPs at the moment, I don't think any of them is going to vote for a general election anytime soon. So
you're not going to call for one, are you?
Well, no, I think what we want to see is a change in Prime Minister. Let's keep our focus on the main thing at the moment.
No, we're not going to have a general election. And actually, I've long thought that one of the things that Keir Starmer could try to do in order to retain his position is to threaten to press the nuclear button and call a general election himself, because particularly after the local elections and what happened in Scotland and Wales last week.
Did you hear that shudder going down James's spine?
Well, exactly.
There?
I can't see many Labour MPs
it was a shaky
going
head.
for
It was not a shudder.
Perhaps that would get the troops falling into line. Look, one of Starmer's many flaws is that he seems to have believed that party management was beneath him, that it was somebody else's problem. And he allowed many members of the Parliamentary Labour Party to feel sidelined. So, Iain, you're absolutely right that it was jaw-dropping that his first move after the bruising election results was to bring Gordon Brown and Harriet Harman back into number 10. Harriet Harman in particular, because there are many people in the Labour Party who would feel that they were up to the job of defending women and girls and their interests in this country. Gordon Brown, I assume, was more a signal to the markets to try and calm them in the aftermath of that rout. The fact that there's no oven-ready, obvious candidate to replace Starmer is also hardly a sort of re-endorsement of the talent within the party. Obviously, you've got Andy Burnham, who many Labour MPs seem to believe will be their saviour, having forgotten that he's tried for the Labour leadership twice before and failed. Ed Miliband, if he wants the job, lost a winnable election in 2015. Angela Rayner was the housing secretary who allowed herself to be embroiled in a housing scandal. And Wes Streeting does not have the support of sufficient numbers of members of Parliament, but also Labour members who will get the ultimate deciding vote. So it's not clear who would replace him, nor indeed who that person would put in their cabinet. But if it is Wes Streeting, I do wonder whether he might make Starmer Foreign Secretary, given the Prime Minister has behaved like the Foreign Secretary for the last 2 years.
That last night, actually.
I just think that if you get Wes Streeting in as Labour leader, that's basically Starmerism on steroids. And this problem that Labour canvassers are encountering on the doorstep, which is, I don't want to vote Labour. They're not really Labour anymore. They don't stand for my values. I'm going to give my vote to the Green Party if you're in London, or another party which seems to be standing more for working people. You're just going to get that accelerating even more. And I think that this is part of Starmer's problem, which is, yes, this was a huge breakthrough for reform, right? Undeniably a huge breakthrough for reform in this set of local elections, building on what was already a massive historic breakthrough the year before. But part of why reform could do so well is because the Green share of the vote was going up. And those are disaffected Labour voters who perhaps could be tempted back by Andy Burnham. It's no sure thing, but maybe they could. They definitely won't be by streeting.
Well, except for the fact that reform slaughtered Labour in its traditional working class heartlands. Those are not necessarily the sorts of voters who will find Andy Burnham particularly appealing. What they care about more than anything else is immigration.
But my point is this, is that, obviously places win parliaments, but people aren't homogenous within them. And if reform are getting through in part because Labour are losing their progressive vote, that is a problem. I don't see a way forward for Labour at the moment, or indeed the Green Party, to take on reform and beat them in the next general election within this electoral system. I think reform are going to win it. And I don't think a change of leader changes that fact at all. But Labour can't do what they've been doing, which is essentially telling their, left flank to, go and swivel. If you don't like it, there's the door, we're shaking off the fleas, all that kind of thing. Whilst at the same time, never going to be tough enough in immigration to win back a reform-curious voter.
I'm just not sure that Labour can win back those progressive voters in university towns, students, the Muslim vote that's gone to the Greens already. And one way that they could potentially have achieved that was by promising to put returning into the customs union and single market in their 2029 manifesto, which Keir Starmer was unwilling to do yesterday.
Now, Richard Holden, you may have to account for yourself to your leader.
Why? What have I done wrong now?
Well, because Kemi Badenoch, speaking to The Telegraph last week, Annabelle, I'm surprised you didn't bring this up yourself, she called on Keir Starmer to call an election if there's a leadership contest. She said, I think the public should have their chance to have a say on what it is they want.
If there's a leadership contest, he can't call an election, can he? So, I think it's the other way around, isn't it? There'd have to be an election after a leadership contest.
So you're disagreeing with her twice?
Well, I think that's a bit unfair. I don't know. I've not seen this exact quote, Ian, so I need
I
need to work out the context.
You're on the Freedom of Speech Committee. You're allowed to disagree. It's fine.
Phil in Devon says, poor old James, 4 against 1. Balance, Dale. No, we have two right-wing two right-wing panellists and two left-wing panellists. That's what I call balance. Sorry if that doesn't.
One left-wing panelist.
Yeah, I think I knew.
Do you not class yourself?
I'm definitely on that side of the political aircraft. Ash might be further
out of the wing.
Yeah, exactly.
I may be in the fuselage bit.
Okay, well, let's not go down that road. Right, more of your questions to come. It's 8:34. News headlines on LBC with Daisy Steele.
Health Secretary Wes Streeting will meet the Prime Minister tomorrow morning. The potential Labour leadership hopeful will speak to Sir Keir Starmer before the King's speech setting out the government's parliamentary agenda. It comes as the party descends into open warfare over the PM's future. 4 ministers have resigned and joined at least 80 MPs urging him to quit, while more than 100 others are warning against a leadership contest. Sir Keir vowed to fight on at this morning's cabinet meeting, while his deputy David Lammy is urging colleagues to step back and take a breath. And 10 people from the UK overseas territories of St Helena and Ascension Island, who were on the hantavirus-hit MV Hondius cruise ship, will be brought to the UK to complete their self-isolation. The UK Health Security Agency says they're being moved as a precautionary measure. LBC weather, wind and heavy showers moving in from the west overnight, staying dry in the far south, lows of 1 degree.
This is LBC. Listen on the move with the LBC app.
Mr. and Little Miss are back in Happy Meal and they're off on a road trip. Your little one can go somewhere exciting with Little Miss Brave, laugh all the way there with Mr. Tickle, or make up an adventure all of their own. On this road trip, anything's possible. Some fun, some food, it's all inside this Happy Meal. Until the 8th of June from 11 a.m. Includes one pre-selected book or toy while stocks last, subject to availability.
May we have your attention? Introducing the Volkswagen May event. Get an extra £1,000 towards your finance deposit with Solutions PCP 7.9% APR representative across the range, including the amazing Golf, Tiguan, and all-electric ID3. Major. I said it was in May, right?
Yes.
Ends Monday the 18th of May. Visit your nearest Volkswagen retailer. You may just find the car you've been looking for.
Stop it.
Participating retailers. Excludes T-Roc ID bars and Golf GTI 50. ID3 from stock only. Indemnities may be required. Registered by 30th of August. Volkswagen Finance.
With problem earwax, things don't feel quite right. The NHS recommends using olive oil to help relieve build-up. So Otex offers medical-grade olive oil in both drops and spray. But if you need to act faster, there's Otex Express. However you choose to treat it, choose the earwax treatment brand most recommended by pharmacists. And be clear to hear with Otex. Based on a survey of 200 pharmacies. For verification, visit otexhere.com.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC.
8:37, James Frith, Government Minister, Richard Holden, Shadow Transport Secretary, Ash Sarkar, contributing editor of Novara Media and author of
Minority Rule,
and Annabel Denham, columnist for the Daily Telegraph, who ought to be writing a book. Are you?
I want to. I just haven't taken the first step. It's in my mind. It just hasn't made it onto the page.
Now, a text question here from Jane, who tells us she didn't actually vote for Starmer. What specifically is the alternative which Starmer's critics are proposing? Can the panel give concrete examples of policies or approaches that would satisfy those critics while still honouring Labour's election commitments? And do politicians understand how utterly alienating this quite arrogant, constant internal wrangling is to ordinary voters who simply want MPs to get on with the job that they were elected and are paid to do? I did say brief text question. That's not quite sure it's going to be that brief. Annabel.
What is the alternative that Starmer's critics are proposing? Well, I suppose it's not especially clear yet. Angela Rayner sort of tried to set out a manifesto towards the end of last week in her eviscerating open letter to the Prime Minister, 1,000 words. But actually, if you looked at it, in some ways it was more a list of the things that she achieved while she was in government. So she talked about devolution. Well, the devolution revolution was her idea. She talked about planning reform. Obviously, she was the former housing secretary. She talked about the Employment Rights Act. Well, that was very much her baby that she steered through Parliament, the job-destroying bill that it was. Andy Burnham, I'm not sure it's entirely clear because his position has shifted so much over the last 15 years that he has been in politics. As to the question whether they would be able to bring in a set of policies which would be in keeping with the 2024 Labour manifesto, well, I think we have to all accept now that that manifesto is barely worth the paper it was written on. The only thing that Labour could argue really they've stuck to in terms of big policies was the tax triple lock. But even then, they promised not to raise national insurance contributions, but they increased employer national insurance contributions by £25 billion in the first budget. And to the question of whether politicians grasp how alienating this is to ordinary voters, no, I don't think they do. And we've talked a fair bit about the bond markets over the course of this panel. And one of the concerns that investors are going to have is that nobody really seems to be running the country at the moment. There's so much psychodrama. We've just had a spell where MPs have been in their constituencies. We've had the elections. And you do just wonder who's in charge now.
James Frith.
Well, amen to Jane. I think getting on with the job is absolutely the instruction.
But Theresa May used to say that as well. It never really worked for her, did it?
Let me get more than a few seconds, Ian, before you interrupt me. As to the work of the government that we've already achieved off the back of a manifesto that won us this historic victory, renters' rights, workers' rights, wages for the lowest paid are higher. Childcare is now seen as a infrastructure, as an enabling infrastructure, as helping with family life as well as the economic growth that comes with mums and dads being able to get back to work or share parental leave. The idea that giving workers rights is somehow a backward step when in fact it's the root of all better productivity, a happier workforce.
We have the highest youth unemployment of any country in Europe
because of some of the structural issues that we've got to address, as well as some of the challenge that entry-level jobs being taken by AI, and we can get onto that. But don't give a 14-year record where unemployment went through the roof with NEETs up, then down, then up again, as well as the welfare numbers that would never tackle people just parked on benefits and forgotten, provided they were counted as different to unemployment. Health is a huge gain from the money that was raised from two different areas in successive budgets to make sure that that our waiting lists are coming down, which was an absolute number one priority for the electorate. There is an untold story, an unsold story about the migration numbers and the beginnings of tackling the boats, which is undoing years of reliance of just parking illegal migrants in hotels rather than actually having processing.
We can't go through the whole manifesto.
Well, okay, but you ask for a challenge.
Well, I'm sorry, but renters' rights was top Tory policy. So was free childcare. A lot of this was in motion before Labour came into power.
Potentially on theme base, but in terms of our record, I'll take a record on Sure Start, our record on welfare care, our record on the NHS, our record on investing in early years. My local authority, as with many local authorities, have seen a funding boost. I've got 19% more the next 3 years. We've given local authorities clarity. We've forgiven debt that was less escalated with special educational needs provision. So part of the challenge this government has got is that it's lacking in salespeople of the record that we've already achieved. And I'm pretty proud of that in 2 years after the horror show that we're trying to resist falling back into, the psychodrama of the Tory years, actually with a steady hand. Interest rates have come down 6 times. Inflation, yes, there are challenges with the Iran. The management of Trump, the management of the not going into Iran, the management of a better relationship with the European Union. These are repair jobs, but we've now got to go further.
So for the last 3 minutes, you've effectively marketed Labour's record. Why can't the Cabinet do that?
I think they can.
So therefore, why aren't you in the Cabinet?
Oh, well, I mean, you know.
The next Cabinet.
As my mother would say, from your mouth to God's ears.
The thing is, and look, I want to be fair and I don't want to come off as a negative Nancy against Keir Starmer. I think that there are some things there that you're right about. There are things that Keir Starmer's government has done that he doesn't get credit for. So he's still being hammered by reform over immigration. Overall, the numbers have come down. Hasn't come down on small boats, but has come down in overall numbers. Things like Great British Rail, renters' rights, I think NHS waiting lists, these are very big ones. The problem is that on the one hand, you've got these huge structural issues that Keir Starmer has not been able to get a grip on. And for me, I think the fundamental thing here is volatility is the new normal, too disciplined by the markets. The state has basically been outsourced to Deloitte and McKinsey, and we're reliant on consultants and things of that nature. And then you also have his lack of political acumen. He's been unable to look after his coalition in any significant way. And he's hemorrhaging voters to both his left and right. And the question, I think, was about, well, what's the alternative? And of the suggested runners and riders, Andy Burnham is the only one who like him or loathe him or sceptical of him. He's given any hint of having something of a theory of change. He said, OK, I think we're too disciplined by the bond markets. Volatility is a product of first past the post. Angela Rayner, yes, she would stand for a closer relationship with Labour's unions. The main thing that she represents is a change of personality. And, you know, Wes Streeting, to put a twist on a famous New Labour anthem, you know, things can always get worse. You know, he could legitimately lose his seat in the next general election to a Progressive independent.
He was the one area in the local elections where they actually, I think they increased their votes in Redbridge, whereas most of the other Labour areas in London did not.
And look, including Tameside and Angela Rayner's constituency.
And we'd have to see how he does against Leanne Mohammed if she stands again next year. He only clung on by about 500 votes. The thing I'm saying is that I think that the tendency of the media is we tend to look at this through personalities, right? Who's up, who's down, Keir Starmer's personality polling and all the rest of it. And that comes, I think, at the expense of thinking, what are the structural issues and who's actually talking about them? The problem is I don't think Keir Starmer's been talking about them. And I don't think he's given any sign that he's capable of dealing with them. You know, whenever any of these issues were pointed out, you just get a sort of bleat about growth.
Richard.
Well, look, I mean, I do actually worry that the Labour Party is about to enter a contest of who can spend more of taxpayers' money more badly and more quickly, because I fear that's what the Labour membership is. And in choosing a new leader, I think that without a clear direction of travel and somebody prepared to actually say, you know, the way we're doing stuff is not in the right direction and letting out a vision, I don't see where the Labour Party can, you know, is going to go on that. And I worry about that, because that's exactly what Keir Starmer ended up in the position of. He sort of said one thing to get the Labour leadership election, and then he went back on that, and then he said another thing to win a general election, and then since he's won the general election, he's sort of gone back on that, and then turns out what he was doing was quite unpopular, so he's gone back on those. And I really worry that perhaps a lot of this instability, with such a large majority, right, coming in, it just feels it feels this is a totally of his own making, the situation.
But the signs were there.
We're facing at the moment.
It was a huge majority on the back of fewer votes than Jeremy Corbyn got in 2019.
That is true. That is a fair point.
Masterclass in voter efficiency, but the signs of instability were there. It's a loveless majority. You're going to have to do a lot to shore it up, and I don't think that his cabinet did that.
Jay says, see, Iain, I was right after all. It's not about the storytelling. It's about getting the storytelling right. If that guy, James, could do it, why can't the rest of the Labour Party do it? I think he's done really well here. Honestly, I think he's done all right. Although I do think people should be talking over each other and shouting at each other more. You know I love that. Yeah, but most listeners don't, Jay, so I have to put a stop to that one.
Have we checked that that's not my brother or anyone?
Have you got a brother called Jay?
No, but he may.
Okay. Right, more questions to come. It's 8:47.
This is LBC.
Experience. It's knowing the difference between a good deal and, well, a great deal. Saga Travel Insurance covers most pre-existing medical conditions and has been named a Which Best Buy. Smart choice. And right now you can get 20% off travel insurance until the 11th of June. Search Saga Travel Insurance for a quote today. New policies only, subject to medical screening. Standard and Plus or Which Best Buys May 2025. Terms and conditions apply. Over 50s only.
It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Get that Toyota electric feeling with the all-new, all-electric Toyota Urban Cruiser. Available with 0% APR representative and £1,500 deposit contribution. And save £1,500 with the Toyota Electrified Saving. Visit your nearest Toyota centre. Price from $29995. Available on Toyota PCP when financed through Toyota Financial Services by 30th of June 2026. Optional final payment. Indemnities may be required. See website conditions apply.
Tackles the crunch and theatrical diving. Rivals on terraces sobbing and crying. Last minute winners that change everything. These are a few of our favourite things. When you're singing, yet not winning. When your bet's gone bad. We simply remember our favourite things. And then we'll feel so glad.
For all your favourite things, visit BetVictor. 18 plus gambleaware.org. Please gamble responsibly.
Next. Hi, just these, thanks. Do you do cashback? Just need to check you're not a robot first. New security policy. Okay. How many traffic lights can you see out the window? 2. No, that's wrong. Right, well, obviously I'm not a robot. That's what a robot would say.
What a load of malarkey. Smarty keeps things simple, like 80 gigabytes for £10. And on a rolling monthly SIM plan, you're free to leave any time. Less malarkey, more smarty. Search Smarty Mobile.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
It's 8:49 on LBC. James Frith, Richard Holden, Ash Sarkar and Annabelle Denham with me answering your questions. James is in air. Hello, James.
Hello, Iain. Nice to speak to you again, and good evening to your panel. Given the recent elections in Scotland and Wales and the local election in England, three of the countries that comprise the United Kingdom are actually now effectively, in the case of Scotland, run by nationalists governments, and in Northern Ireland, at least half-time by a nationalist government. My original question was actually going to be, how does this fare for the four nations of the United Kingdom? But actually, I would like to know from your panel, who are now English politicians are coming to us, where does England now sit within the United Kingdom? We don't hear this discussed much from English politicians, and I'd be really intrigued to know what the English people think about the elections and where the kind of Celtic countries are, and to hear more about English people speaking about where England is going to go in the future.
Well, James, about 20 years ago, I used to run the campaign for an English Parliament, so maybe I'll answer this question on behalf of all of the... No, I won't. Now, Plaid Cymru's Rhyn Ap Iorwerth was today confirmed as the new First Minister of Wales, while the SNP's John Swinney has been re-elected in Scotland, and Sinn Féin's Michelle O'Neill has been the First Minister of Northern Ireland for more than 2 years now. Richard Holden.
What does it mean for the Union? What does it mean for England? And what about English nationalism? Look, I think actually, if you look around the country, these elections, a lot of parts of the country have seemed to go for the party which wasn't Labour, basically, in a lot of these areas. That seems to be very much the case in Wales. It seems to be very much the case in Scotland. I don't think the SNP have necessarily been the most popular party there the last few years. They've definitely had a bit of a luck, perhaps, with the fact that the court case isn't until after these elections in Scotland. In England, I don't know. There's, some people would say that perhaps Reform has elements of an English nationalist party about them. I know Nigel Farage made some comments about, not against necessarily another Scottish independence referendum, in the years to come. I'm a Conservative and Unionist, so and obviously the Labour Party is also a party of the Union as well. So look, I think what I'm saying is I wouldn't read too much into these results as basically a sudden swing towards nationalism across the country. I think it's perhaps it's more of a rejection of Labour at the moment, and also not quite yet a willingness to go back to the Conservatives.
Right, let's have some fairly brief answers on this one, because I do want to fit in another question before the final question. Ash.
I suppose one of the things that most interests me about the SNP and also Plaid Cymru is that they have projected very inclusive forms of nationalism. You don't have to be white, you don't have to be, ethnically Welsh, ethnically Scottish, and that's something which has really succeeded for them. It's not a nationalism which seems sort of closed off and hostile and suspicious. It's a nationalism which seems to be a celebration of culture. And I would like to see a form of English national identity that can do that. I think maybe one of the problems is because of the history of the far right in this country, is that when people think about English nationalism, it has that much more ethno-nationalist tint to it. It's not something which would necessarily take that same inclusive form. But I would like to see proponents of an English parliament like yourself, Iain, give it a good go and sort of lay it out for us.
Annabelle.
Well, I think if you actually look at the results from the elections, it's quite clear that people don't actually want to split up the union, at least not yet. I actually interviewed Rhys Iorwerth last week, and of course, in the run-up to the Senedd election, he dropped independence. It wasn't a key feature of the
that was really weird. In the debate
manifesto
that we did, I couldn't believe his answer on that. He said, we want a new British union. I'm thinking, well, how does independence work in that?
First thing he said after he'd won there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think he understands that where he is not necessarily where his voters are. It simply isn't that popular, particularly in Wales. And actually in Scotland, the SNP did badly, but it was simply helped out by the fact that its opposition was divided. So there's still a clear pro-union majority. And I think that we can probably drop the questions of independence at this stage. And ultimately, as has already been said by other panellists, this was more about a repudiation of Starmer and Labour than it was necessarily people voting for the SNP or even for Plaid Cymru.
James.
I'm definitely a unionist. I am, as Ash has talked to, very enthusiastic about an Englishness and the reclaiming of this co-opting of Englishness by nationalism and the far right and the racists of the far right. I was born on St George's Day. It's something I make a lot of when the hate goes onto my socials in the run up to St George's Day. People asking me, why am I wishing Eid Mubarak? What about St George's Day? Well, on my birthday, I will wish everybody happy St George's Day. I think it's there's scope for some good debate about Englishness.
Should we rename it Happy St James's Day?
There we are, Ian.
Just to please your mum again.
Indeed. I hope she's got the connection. It had dropped off mid-show. She'd messaged. So, but look, I think it's right when you go. There is a sort of constitutional identity in Scotland and Wales and of course Northern Ireland that is actually, as an Englishman, is enviable, and I think we would do well to come up with ideas that do wrestle off Englishness from the co-opting by the far right.
Right. Livy in Peckham Rye says, first the hypnotherapy, then the Met Police staff, now council tax. Will the right-wing media ever get their way and take down Zach Polanski? Well, you could No, because I'll be accused of being right-wing media if I say what I was going to say. Anyway, the Green Party leader, Zach Belansky, has apologised for failing to pay the correct council tax while living on a London houseboat. A spokesperson said Mr Belansky had been living on the boat moored in East London until relatively recently, which came with its own unique practical circumstances and considerations. He has immediately taken steps to pay any council tax he may be found to owe, which I think is around £4,000. Is this a right-wing media conspiracy, Ash Sarkar?
Look, big knockers and a wealth tax, he's got my vote. I'm so sorry, Mum, if you were listening to that.
What about my mum?
She's already texted in.
Look, I think when it comes to the council
so glad
tax...
I stopped myself from saying what I was about to say.
I think when it comes to the council tax, those of us who are familiar with the stretches of canal along East London know that it has been a black hole of non-enforcement for decades. And it's something that the Canal and Rivers Trust quite like. It's a way in which they get their money in, and it's a way for people essentially to find a way to live with a degree of permanence outside of the absolutely excruciating private rental market that is London renting.
If you're an elected politician, I mean, it's not rocket science to think, I should pay my council tax.
Obviously, you should have your council tax in order. The one thing I was saying, so Dan Needle, who was the person who investigated this, he actually looked into the marina itself, and he said in 35 years, there's only been one resident who registered for council tax. So I'm not saying...
What's the council doing?
I'm not saying it's right, and I think it's good that Zach Belansky has got his affairs in order and he's paying it off. The thing I'll say is that this is clearly a state of ambiguity that many of these barges are living in, and that lots of people have benefited from.
Right, 30 seconds from each of you, because we do need to get to our fun question. Richard.
I mean, he seems to be coming unstuck at every turn at the moment. There's lots of questions about his CV, has he exaggerated positions and all sorts of things on top of this stuff. I don't think this is about the right-wing media. I think this is about Zach Belansky putting himself out there as a bit of a sort of holier-than-thou character and coming unstuck at the first contact with reality.
Annabelle.
I'm not sure that the right-wing media needs to take down Zach Belansky. I suspect that he's such a liability that there'll be so many slip-ups between now and the next general election. He'll be lucky if he is able to cling on as leader of the Green Party. Well, the honeymoon period, according to the polls, is very much over. His unfavourability rating shot up by about 10 points after that very
and then they won
row
hundreds
that he
of
had with the Metropolitan Police Commissioner. And they weren't as successful when winning council seats as they were expecting.
Hang on,
to
they
be.
won
They outperformed their polling.
Nevertheless, they undershot the polls, and
no, they outperformed their polling.
Well, certainly not the ones I was looking at, and the political scientists that I was speaking to.
Well, they beat the Liberal Democrats. I mean, you may say that's a low bar.
We're sliding into irrelevance at the moment, I think. But so I could see the shine coming off the Greens. And one thing I would say is when he's not perhaps exaggerating some of his positions and qualifications, he's announcing policies that ought to terrify people in Britain today because they would be so destructive to our economy.
Okay, James.
I don't need that he doesn't pay his council tax to qualify him and discount him in my mind. The minute he sees the attacking Golders Green and says, what about the terrorist? He's discounted himself forever for me. He's not serious and he's being found out at every turn.
Right. Lucy in Stroud says, it was claimed by the Business Secretary Peter Kyle that the reason Wes Streeting can't have been planning a coup over the weekend was that the two of them went to the cinema together to see The Devil Wears Prada 2. Which film, however old, should Labour MPs watch this week to sum up the mood their party is in? Richard Holden.
Well, I was just saying a little thing about this. I think Goodfellas, there's that great scene, isn't there, where Jimmy comes back and decides to chop up the gang, and Layla plays in the background, and that is going to be Keir Starmer's revenge on the entire cabinet, unless they make a move on him. I think that's the situation we're facing.
James.
I mean, kudos for the Goodfellas reference, and Layla particularly, which I go about my life envisaging I'm in those scenes. Rocky, not just because the soundtrack is Eye of the Tiger, but because after many, many rounds of taking a battering, Rocky wins.
Annabelle?
I would say Crimson Tide, which is set on a submarine. I'm not sure if anybody's seen it. It's a real pot boiler. But it's, in my mind, the best movie about mutiny I think that I've ever seen. It's got blistering performances from Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington, Hans Zimmer score, directed by Tony Scott, and it's absolutely brilliant.
And you obviously love it.
Yes.
Ash?
It's got to be How to Lose Friends and Alienate People.
Very, very good. Right, thank you all very much indeed. Now, just to be absolutely clear, the people accused of involvement in the Golders Green attack are at this point only suspected of doing so, it says here. Right, tomorrow's panel, we have former Labour donor and Andy Burnham advisor Sacha Lord, Reform UK's 2028 London mayoral election candidate Layla Cunningham. You'll be pleased, mention of Layla there. Plus the political journalist Henry Hill, newly of The Critic magazine. Free transfer from Conservative Home. Right, in the next hour, we are going to return to the subject of Keir Starmer, the situation that he is in tonight. My analysis is that he's possibly in a stronger position at this moment in time than he was this time yesterday. But can he pull through? What about these 90 Labour MPs, including 4 ex-ministers now, various ex-PPSs, who can't really take back what they've said? So when they come on programmes like this in the future, if Keir Starmer does survive, it's going to be #orcs, isn't it? What does Keir Starmer need to do to cement his position? Do you think he's played a blinder today? Or do you think that, no, he's in his bunker and it's not a good look? 0345 6060 973.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 9 o'clock, Health Secretary Wes Streeting will meet with the Prime Minister tomorrow morning. The potential Labour leadership hopeful will speak to Sir Keir Starmer before the King's speech setting out the government's parliamentary agenda. It comes as the party descends into open warfare over the PM's future. 4 ministers have resigned and have joined at least 90 MPs urging him to quit. The first to do so was former Communities Minister Miatta Fahnbulleh, who's told LBC what should happen next.
Ultimately, what I want is that we have an orderly process. It feels very chaotic. None of us want this. This is not what the Labour Party does. We need a proper process that has all of our talents. And yes, that does include Andy Burnham, because he's a great politician. He's one of our most popular politicians. He has a track record in Greater Manchester. We need all of our talents setting out their stall.
Meanwhile, more than 100 Labour backbenchers and parliamentary private secretaries are warning against a leadership contest. Sir Keir vowed to fight on at this morning's cabinet meeting, while his deputy David Lammy is urging colleagues to step back and take a breath. Party grandee Harriet Harman, who was recently appointed as an advisor by the Prime Minister, has suggested Andy Burnham should be part of the cabinet. He'd first have to be selected for and win a by-election to stand any chance of making a challenge for the leadership. One of Sir Keir's critics, MP Chris Curtis, is the parliamentary chair of the Labour Growth Group. He thinks a leadership contest is inevitable.
I don't think it should just be a conversation about the process and about the personalities. We also need to have a conversation about ideas, about what our diagnosis is of what's gone wrong with Britain, about why we think this government hasn't, under Keir Starmer's leadership, been able to bring about change quickly enough, and how the next leader may be able to.
The cost of long-term government borrowing has risen amid the uncertainty, while the pound has fallen against the dollar and the euro. Chancellor Rachel Reeves earlier pulled out of an event in the City of London. 10 people from remote South Atlantic islands connected to the cruise ship outbreak of hantavirus are to be brought to the UK in case they develop the illness. The group from St Helena and Ascension Island had contact with some passengers on the MV Hondius who developed the illness. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 4 points at 10,265. The pound buys $1.35 and €1.15. LBC weather: wind and heavy showers moving in from the west overnight, staying dry in the far south. Lows of 1. A windy day with sunny spells and scattered showers tomorrow. There may be thundery in the north and east, but it will be drier in the south and west. A high of 15 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daisy Steele.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 9:06 on LBC. Last night I was on Newsnight talking about my callers, the Royal U. Now, I said that most of what I was hearing from callers to this programme yesterday was actually in the Prime Minister's support. Most of you seem to think that Keir Starmer was being treated very unfairly by his not by his cabinet, but by his MPs. Now, since then, we've had 4 ministerial resignations, all in the lower ranks, it has to be said. Not a single cabinet minister has resigned. We've had the PM telling cabinet that he will go on, rejecting a one-to-one meeting with Wes Streeting before organising one for tomorrow. And we've had Andy Burnham arrive in London almost on a state visit, and the Transport Secretary saying he'd be welcome back in Westminster. Has any of this shifted the dial for you? Are you thinking any differently than you thought this time yesterday? Do you think that this is all, as somebody has put it on a text here, Zott says it's calling it Westminster's gossip addicts. Well, yeah, I'll plead guilty to that. I love a bit of political gossip, just as most people do who do what I do. But I think that this is really something that goes to the core of what politics is about, because politics is about delivering for the people. Otherwise, what's the point of it? If you don't think that your policies are going to deliver a better life for the general public, in general, I mean, we can't individualise everything, but in general, you want people to feel better off than they did this time last year or this time 5 years ago. And that's what it's all about. And I think that's where Labour have had a real problem over the past couple of years, in that people can say, well, they've only had 2 years, isn't it a bit too early to judge? It's a fair point to make in some ways on some policies. But I think the problem is that a lot of people don't see any prospect of feeling any better off over the next few years. And they feel that they've been shortchanged, not just by Labour politicians, but by politicians of all parties, particularly the Conservatives, because they were in power for 14 years. So I wonder whether any of the events of the last 24 hours have shifted the dial for you. Do you have any sense of optimism that maybe Keir Starmer now does actually understand why people are so unhappy with him and things might change? Or do you think, no, we're at a point now where he has to go, and the only way things will change is if there is new leadership for the government? Well, let's just take you through what we've heard on the programme this evening. I've been joined by 2 Labour backbenchers, plus a representative from the government. First, this is one of the PM's backers, Perrin Moon, who's keen to avoid more political chaos.
We have heard over the last 24 hours an awful lot about the group of people who seem to think that the best thing for the country is to plunge us back into the same kind of wheel of fortune with prime ministers that we have had under the Conservatives. There are significantly more Labour MPs who do not think that that is a good idea, who do not want a leadership change at this stage, who want us to focus on the public services, restoring the public services, restoring the economy. And I'm very conscious that this is in the context of a really poor set of local elections. And I'm not trying to hide away from that. The issue we have is that a lot of the changes that have been made are not being felt with by people yet.
That's Perrin Moon. However, his fellow Labour MP, Tonia Antionazzi, doesn't agree.
Well, I think that the change is needed because we need somebody to actually make change happen and stand up and just do it and get on with it. Just get on with it. Look, we've seen 2 letters. Well, I've read, the 2 letters, one from Alex Davies-Jones, the MP for Pontypridd and the former Victims Minister, citing the Hillsborough law. That's huge. We need to move forward. He's just not delivered. And Jess's letter was just outstanding because she is so frustrated and citing things. It was just so cut through. The disappointment is visceral in the party, and it's really disappointing that he hasn't stood down. Now, I know that we will disagree, and I disagree with Perrin. I know what a nice bloke he is. But if you're not having that cut through and you're knocking on doors and people just, they hate him.
And on Cross Question, Junior Minister James Frith made clear that the likes of Tonia Antonazzi have not persuaded him at all.
I disappointed your producer who asked if I was to be resigning on air. Well, I'm not, Ian, at all. Look, I think the Prime Minister's right to be getting on with the job. It was a local election, not a national general election.
It was a national election in Wales and Scotland.
Indeed, and I think it's important that he started the speech yesterday in acknowledging the doubters, in acknowledging how much hurt there is in the defeat and the election results that were truly awful. And he confronted that. He wants to prove the doubters wrong, and he wants to be given that right of reply and a chance to get on with the job.
Well, also, Tonia Antonazzi, she said she'd like to see Darren Jones replace Keir Starmer. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but he was put out on the morning round, was it today or yesterday? Today, I think, to do all the interviews. So that's a sign that Keir Starmer has huge confidence in him. Well, he is Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. Right, let's go to Phil in St Helens. Hello, Phil.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, after 14 years of, Tory mismanagement and the way that went, for a while I didn't see how or why he was getting so much visceral hate. But after all them years of Tory managed decline, there was really no more room or tolerance for any more mismanagement. And after 14 U-turns, is it 14?
I think it's possibly more than that, but let's not quibble over a little number.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, I just do not believe any performances in PMEQs, Prime Minister of Age questions, is just, it's so infuriating, just watching him just not answer basic questions. And this is, people say this all over social media, how he's just in an inability to answer any question of substance. And then when he's asked any question of substance by the media, he looks like a rabbit in headlights to me. And it just screams insecurity or incompetence. I'm not sure, but to change him now is a bit of a catch-22 situation, because you're going to, as we've seen, that the markets are going to respond very badly. And but to be honest with you, I really don't think any change of leadership is going to affect the way the country is going, because I don't think the Labour Party are really going to be prepared to do what needs to be done in terms of our financial crisis, and it is a crisis.
It's an interesting point, because let's look into our crystal balls and think, OK, well, if there is a change, doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Burnham, Reeve, well, it won't be Rachel Reeves, well, I don't think she's going to stand, Burnham, Streeting, Rayner or Miliband. I wonder how much of a honeymoon period any of them would actually be granted by the electorate. Because if you think about it, Keir Starmer didn't have one. And it was his own fault that he didn't have one, first of all with the winter fuel payments and second of all with the Freebiegate scandal. Yeah. So he never had a honeymoon period. Do you think a new leader might?
No, there's no more patience or tolerance left. I don't think that it might be very, very short. But I just want to get one point across, that this country is really facing a real. I mean, in 1995, our national debt was 290 billion-ish, and 44% of GDP. Today, you tell me, it's
about 2.3 trillion.
And 98% of GDP. And the Labour Party are not willing to do what needs to be done. And the triple lock has to go. Where it doesn't.
But none of the parties are willing to do that.
Well, yes, I know. And actually, this is the problem we have, because it's a political suicide almost, isn't it? But these are the facts. This is objective reality now. Didn't the total welfare bill exceed total tax revenue for the entire country? So we're heading in very, very dangerous territory. And what I can see happening, if nobody wants to confront these issues, is that we're going to go the way Greece did post-financial crash, where we're at risk of defaulting on debts.
Well, we're already like Italy was back in the 1970s and 80s, with so many different prime ministers within the space of 5 or 6 years.
Yes. I mean, in between 1979 and 2007, there was 3 prime ministers in the UK, and then we've had, exit. So this is the trajectory we're on, where we've got our foot to the floor and the bridge is out. And I don't see anybody willing to confront these problems. And I'm afraid for my children's future, to be perfectly honest, because I think we're just going to go where you can just imagine mass protest. I might sound like alarmist, but I really think this is actually quite plausible, the current future we've got at the minute.
Well, you're sounding incredibly depressed. I can understand why, and I think I don't have children, but I do get what you're saying. That, and I have often said to people, and this is way beyond all the current crisis, sort of, would I want to bring a child into this world in today's society where everything, by definition, is almost so competitive, where you have no idea what the implications of AI are going to be for the employment market, for example?
Yeah, that's something else to throw into the mix. We've got kind of a perfect storm.
Yeah.
We've got an increasingly factionalised, tribalised society with no sense of national unity. I think I saw a poll recently that if we had to go to war, who would fight for the country? And I think this was a Glaswegian study that was about 30%. And I just don't see a sense of unity. And from the Labour Party, I don't see a sense of vision. There's never really was a plan in place. It was just Labour are going to get in because of how badly the Tories did. That was just the end of it. And then there's just been U-turn after U-turn and no real vision in place. And we're at a really, I think, critical point now where things, if they don't change, and nobody wants to confront it. I get it, because it would mean such, like I've already said, political suicide almost. But we're in a kind of catch-22, and I don't see how it's going to get better and who's going to change it.
Phil, thank you very much. Well, you know what? You have just articulated why Nigel Farage swept the board in St Helens. I don't know whether you voted for him or not.
Yeah, I did. I mean, the 5 million thing is a big red flag for me. I don't, but they've got no money, so nothing's going to change there either. So the council has no money, so nothing's going to change.
No, but I think one of the reasons that they did so well in many areas was because I think people just think, well, they're not Labour or Conservative, so let's give them a go.
Yes,
and they might well be severely disappointed by the reality, but there's always been a protest vote in this country. It's nothing unusual, actually. It used to go to the Liberal Democrats, and it's now going to reform the Greens.
Yeah, I don't see reform, to be honest, being not a mature enough of a party for me at present. I mean, I just don't see. I don't see who I'm going to vote for in the next election.
Okay. All right, Phil, thank you very much indeed. More of your calls to come, 18 minutes past 9.
LBC.
At John Lewis Money, we know your home is more than an address. It's the sunlight pouring in. Well, sometimes. The coffee on tap and the best spot on the sofa. It's why our home insurance is thoughtfully designed with 3 levels of flexible cover for the home you've created. Because when you notice the details, you notice the difference. Search John Lewis Money. Terms and exclusions apply. John Lewis Finance Limited is authorised for insurance distribution and credit broking by the Financial Conduct Authority.
It's Munich, 1936, and all eyes are on the capital for the upcoming Olympic Games. As athletes fight for gold and the Nazis fight for power, Detective Sebastian Wolf faces a battle of his own. In a search that will take him from high society to the city's darkest corners, Wolf is about to learn just how easily the hunter becomes the hunted. Evil in High Places is the gripping new historical thriller from the million-copy bestseller Rory Clements. Out now.
Calling all young creatives. Kickstart your career in media. Apply now and join us in years 10 or 12 at Global Academy. globalacademy.com.
Are you ready for the McCrispy to become your new go-to? With juicy 100% chicken breast, one bite and your usual becomes your used to. Betray your go-to for McCrispy. Now at McDonald's. Served from 11 a.m, subject to availability.
Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
20 past 9. I should have said at the beginning of the hour, it's your calls all the way in this hour. No guests, just your calls, which is the way I like it. Rob is in St Albans. Hello, Rob.
Evening, Ian. To be honest, my opinion hasn't changed today. I've felt for months that Starmer needs to go. I feel that as long as he's in power, by the next election, if he was still clinging on, he will virtually wipe Labour out, which would be quite an achievement considering the majority he had at the start. But I'll tell you for the reason why. I think he's made mistakes, but he's also not done, in my opinion, as hell of a bad job as Boris did. But the reality is this man's been demonised from the minute he got into power. And unfortunately, the politics in 2026 now really isn't about politics. It's about, I hate to say it, it's about personality. I mean, America's elected Donald Trump twice, not on policy, on personality. And, we go back to Tony Blair in 1996, and he was elected really because people were looking for a change, and he lied from day one. Everything he said about education and everything else was just lie after lie.
Well, hang on a minute.
And he got it twice.
No, I'm sorry.
Because he was popular.
You can criticise Tony Blair for a lot of things, but I think education was something that meant a lot to him. And if you look at the Labour record on education during that government, I mean, I don't know what he's supposed to have lied about, Rob, but my recollection was that it wasn't bad.
Well, didn't they bring in university fees?
Yeah, they did.
They abolished the grant system. They brought in university fees.
Yeah.
So how was that helping people in education?
Well, because a lot more people went to university in that period. It didn't actually stop people from going.
Well, I think you find it created a mountain of debt going forward that no government's ever going to return. I mean, the average student now leaving university has got, £60,000-70,000 worth of debt?
Yeah, but under that government, and it sounds as if I'm defending a Blair government, God help me, but the tuition fees then were maximum £3,000. It was the coalition that put them up to, the maximum of £9,000.
I'm aware of that, but what I'm saying is Tony Blair didn't keep his promises, but
I think he did.
We can debate that or not, but he got in on a second election, no issue at all, because he was popular. He had personality, he had charisma, and I think Starmer's probably a very good bloke. He's probably a nice guy, but he doesn't have the personality that's going to carry an election for Labour. I think he's toxic. His name is toxic on the doorstep. His name is toxic in the press. I think the media's just destroyed
that's not because he's been demonised by the media, as you put it. The reason for that is he made two basic errors right at the start. That's why he didn't have a honeymoon period, because he did the winter fuel allowance, which wasn't in their manifesto, and then he accepted freebie seats and glasses, and people thought, well, hang on a minute, I thought this guy was going to be different.
Like I acknowledged already, the man has made mistakes, but compared to the stuff that Boris got up to, and Boris, the reality was his own party got him out. He became toxic to his own party, whereas the likes of the certain newspapers and the press was still defending the man and, how can I put this more politely or less politely, licking his backside up until the day he was ousted.
Well, there were
he couldn't put a foot wrong.
There were a couple of newspapers that did do that. You're absolutely right. But, I mean, that's you can't say the whole of the media did that, because it didn't.
Well, I think in this day and age, the only candidate that's going to carry a party forward is one that the media is going to get behind. And there's certain media now which is going after one particular individual, lining him up to be the next Prime Minister. And if he does get in, he's going to be the worst thing that's ever happened to this country, in my opinion, since World War II. But that's the reality of the world we live in. That's, nowadays people aren't interested in policies. They might say they are. They'll tell you that, but the reality is they're sitting there watching garbage on TikTok and all this other nonsense. They're not looking into policies and actually looking at a government that's going to do something. They're looking at who they want to vote for because they're going down the dumbest route possible. They're not looking at the actual bigger picture. They're just looking at, I like this guy or I like that guy. And that's very sad, because in this future that we've got ahead of us, if we're going to elect politicians like that, it reminds me of a film called Idiocracy, and that film was set 500 years in the future. And if you saw who the president was in that in America, he was like a WWF wrestler, and it was just bizarre. But that is slowly churning into a reality. And that's the direction we're headed. That's why when parties like Labour are going to have somebody like Keir Starmer in this modern age, somebody like that isn't going to cut it. That's why I've been thinking for months he needs to go. They need to get somebody else who's not toxic, and somebody at the same time with a bit more of a backbone, who's going to stick to policies, and actually whether they're popular or not, actually is not going to keep making all these U-turns. And I think that's the only way that Labour's got any chance at all of getting anywhere in the next election. I mean, that's 3 years away now, nearly. More than 3 years, but if they don't turn it around come next election, they'll just get wiped out, and that's going to be that. And then we'll get either some kind of really horrible coalition coming in of Reform and the Tories, or something even worse. Who knows?
Okay, thank you very much, Rob. Luke is the first-time caller in Westminster. Hello, Luke.
Hello, Ian. Lovely to talk to you.
What would you like to say?
So, essentially, So I'm more on the left of the political spectrum. Obviously, I support or have supported the Labour Party my entire life. But obviously, I identify more with Corbyn. So my main message is the Labour Party needs to grow a spine. Obviously, Jess Phillips did that today, and the other junior minister, and I'm grateful to them. But then this afternoon, I checked the news, and along comes Lammy, literally sucking up to Starmer. I'm like, you chicken, mate. But yeah.
Well, he's Deputy Prime Minister. What's he going to, if he's not going to resign, what do you think he should do? Criticise him?
Contest his leadership.
I mean, that's not the way it works. I mean, if you're in the government, of course you're going to support your Prime Minister. It goes with the territory.
Yes. Well, Jess Phillips didn't.
No, and she resigned. But David Lammy obviously doesn't feel that way.
Ultimately, I think they should end in a vote of no confidence. I think his days are limited. I think he's brought shame on the party.
He would win a vote of no confidence because if he didn't, there'd be a general election.
Well, yeah. Essentially, he's brought shame on the party. Obviously, starting with the winter fuel allowance and stuff like that. And as someone on the left political spectrum, it's embarrassing, quite frankly embarrassing, to see the party get such a bad rep because of some red conservative who happens to be our leader.
What on earth is a red conservative, and how on earth is Keir Starmer in any way a conservative?
Well, his policies, the conservative...
Like what?
Cutting the winter fuel allowance, cutting the Senedd budget, the Palestine Action Bill, prescribing it as a terrorist group.
How is that a conservative policy?
They're draconian, and they're very right-wing policies. It may not be conservative itself.
You mean just because you disagree with them, therefore they're right-wing?
No, they are right-wing. The Labour Party is supposed to be the party of the people. And these decisions have done far from that. You would think that they would invest more in welfare. I appreciate...
Oh, my goodness. You want more on benefits? Are you mad?
Not benefits.
Well, that's what welfare is, isn't it?
Yeah. The health service, transport.
I mean, £200 billion on the health service. How much more would you like to be spent on the health service?
Well, enough so that...
They spent an extra £25 billion. That was the first thing they did. They slammed on national insurance on employers, which has lost a lot of jobs, to pay for Wes Streeting's 22% pay rise for junior doctors. And you think you want to spend more on the health service? I mean, it's delusional.
Well, thank you very much.
Anytime.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Luke, but this idea that you can just spray around non-existent money to fund your pet projects when the money just isn't there, I mean, that will lead to electoral oblivion if they followed that line.
I think you'll find the money is there. I think it's in their own wages.
What on earth is that supposed to mean?
Sorry, if they took... A standard backbench MP is in six figures. Their wage is in six figures.
Oh no, it's not. They are £96,000 a year.
Yeah, exactly. 96.
Well, that's 5 figures.
It's 4,000 short of 6 figures.
Yeah, but just to be accurate.
Yeah, I appreciate the accuracy. However, regardless, you could halve that and it would still be a livable wage for them. They work for us. They're not better than us in any way.
No one said they are.
So why do they deserve a much higher wage than the rest of the country? I appreciate they're elected.
Do you really think that it would be a good idea to cut wages for MPs and therefore attract even fewer good people into politics? Because I have to say I don't.
People shouldn't be in it for that wage.
Well, I don't think most people are in it for the wage. A lot of people have taken a pay cut to go into politics.
Anyways.
I mean, do you know, if you halve their wages, I've just got my calculator out here and I've calculated, if you cut their wages by $45,000 each, do you know how much that would get you to spend on other things?
How much?
It will get you £29,250,000. Now, I mean, that is a lot of money. You could probably pay for
now, what
800 nurses for that.
What could you nationalise with that?
Nothing.
Okay.
Well, you asked the question.
Yeah. No.
I mean, it would cost, if you wanted to nationalise water, which I'm sure you probably do, that would cost about £100 billion.
Well, you talk about the nurses. Why do you not talk about, severely underfunded organisations? The Northeast Ambulance, any ambulance service, they're running unsatisfactory things due to a lack of funding. That's where that could go.
I quite agree that, and the ambulance service does deserve more funding. There are all sorts of things that deserve more funding, but the fact of the matter is that our debt and deficit levels are at a level that if we went and borrowed more money or put up taxes, the financial markets would lose confidence in our economy, which they're starting to do anyway. The cost of borrowing then goes up for ordinary people as well, and we're in an economic doom loop. That's the problem.
Sorry, can I just ask, what's your political sort of affiliation? What do you believe in yourself?
I'm on the right of politics.
I think that's fairly apparent.
Yeah. Well, I've never. It's not a secret. I've made it quite. Everyone knows what my political background is. I stood to be a Conservative MP once. I tried to do it again. So I identify as a Conservative.
Fair enough. And everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
Exactly right.
Right. I'll leave you to it. Thank you for talking to me, mate.
Luke, thank you very much indeed. Right, more calls to come. It's 9:33. Daisy Steele has the LBC News headlines.
Health Secretary Wes Streeting will meet the Prime Minister tomorrow morning. The potential leadership hopeful will speak to Sir Keir Starmer before the King's speech opening Parliament. Labour has descended into open division over the PM's future. 4 ministers have resigned and joined at least 90 MPs urging him to quit, while more than 100 others are warning against a leadership contest. The Prime Minister told his cabinet this morning he will continue to get on with governing. Party grandee Harriet Harman, who was recently appointed as an advisor by the Prime Minister, has suggested Andy Burnham should be part of the cabinet. Meanwhile, political turmoil is having an impact on the markets. The cost of government borrowing has hit an 18-year high. And a man in his 40s has died after being shot by armed police in Bedford. Officers say the suspect presented a weapon after an armed standoff. LBC weather, wind and heavy showers moving in from the west overnight, staying dry in the far south, lows of 1 degree.
This is LBC.
Check your retirement savings are on track with PensionBee's easy-to-use app. Because when your pension is in a good place, you're in a good place. When investing, your capital is at risk.
Have you spotted anything?
Only seagulls. Are you sure this beach is a nature reserve?
Well, the sign said, nature this way. Hey, what's that big bird over there? Flapping its wings, unusual markings.
You sure that sign didn't say naturists?
Oi, this is a nudist beach.
Ooh. Now, where are my binoculars?
Cheryl?
Struggling to read in the sun? Get 2 for 1 at Specsavers and make prescription sunglasses your second pair. From £70 with standard single vision lenses to the same prescription. Terms and conditions apply. See in store for details.
You've packed enough suitcases to know quality when you see it. Well, Saga Travel Insurance has been named a Which Best Buy. And now get 20% off when you buy before the 11th of June. Search Saga Travel Insurance for a quote today. New policies only. Standard and Plus are Which Best Buys May 2025. Terms and conditions apply. Over 50s only.
With Halfords, this summer is about doing more.
More days out, more last-minute plans. And with roof boxes and bike racks fitted in store, there's room for it all. Make sure your car is adventure-ready with a 10-point car check. And stay prepped for whatever the British weather throws your way with aircon checks and wiper blades fitted in store. Our experts are on hand with anything you need. So shop online or in store and get out there with Halfords. Services subject to availability. Full T's and C's apply. See halfords.com for details.
Iain Dale on LBC.
9:36 on LBC. Now, the Prime Minister has announced a bunch of replacements for those ministers who've resigned. Therefore, I suppose he would say, demonstrating his determination to get back on track. Well, they include, wait for this, Preet Kaur Gill, now a junior health minister, who was on this programme defending the Prime Minister yesterday. So she has been rewarded for that. Any other MPs who want a job, call in 0345 6060 973. Other new ministers include Natalie Fleet at the Home Office, Catherine Atkinson at Justice, and Nezal Kaliskan, a housing minister. So congratulations to all of those. I wonder how long they'll be in the job. Ollie is in Colchester. Hello, Ollie.
Good evening. How you doing? You all right?
Good, thank you. What would you like to say?
Good. Well, firstly, I've found that previous caller quite interesting to listen to.
Interesting is an interesting word to use, yes.
Yes, I think we're on the same page. So from my perspective, I want to make a few things clear. I'm notoriously conservative. My local constituency for the local elections didn't vote as such. They voted reform, which is by the by. And by no means do I sympathise with Keir Starmer. But that being said, I do not believe he should be stepping down. We do not need more destabilisation in this country. We are going down the slippery slope as it is. And as far as I'm concerned, if we just get a new leader for the next 3 years before the next general election, it's not going to be enough to turn things around, especially with the economy the way that it is. And with all due respect, the economy is not particularly the greatest because the global economy is not the greatest either. So we're all in this together as a country, as a globe or planet, than we are by ourselves. So I'm really not convinced that removing Keir Starmer from power, despite me not sympathising for him, is the right thing to do.
Well, what you've just said kind of reflects my view in that the political geek in me loves leadership contests, and so from that point of view, I'd quite like to see one. But the realist in me worries about exactly what you worry about, the economic consequences of this. Because, as you say, the world economy is not in good shape. We know that all the European economies are in roughly the same shape as ours, most of them actually worse off than ours. So that there is no silver bullet. And to the idea that going back into the single market or customs union would have any material effect on our economy, I think is for the birds. However, what we don't want to do is make it worse. And I think there is a real prospect of our gilt yields shooting up beyond 6 or even 7% if we're not careful. And that would render our economy in an economic doom loop, possibly for several years to come. No one wants that. No, I mean, I want any government, I don't care what the political colour of the government, I want a government to have a successful economy because we all benefit from that. I mean, who wouldn't want the economy to work well? So I do fear the consequences as you outline.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we could go on about the scandal and the U-turn after U-turn, but with all due respect, I don't earn amazingly, but that's not stopping me from going, well, actually, hold on a minute. If you've got people investing into businesses and starting businesses and growing businesses and able to, hire members of staff, like my sister's 21, she's not had a job since she's left school. She cannot find one, and I'm doing everything I can to help her out. And without having people confident to invest into the economy, i.e. start a business, go self-employed, do this, do that, well, it's not going to help anybody, and we are going to rely on the state more and more, as we're seeing with the welfare bill. And that's my biggest concern, is when they announce the increase to national insurance tax for employers, I get we need to raise taxes to fund these things, but if you're doing that, it's putting people out of business. Yeah, it's stopping people from being able to hire people. It's stopping people from being able to have a job. There is no incentive to work at the moment unless you do have a wage that is above average. It's demotivating, and that's the trouble. We don't have a competitive economy because we're not built for it with the way the government is.
Well, I'm not going to go on, Ollie, because I agree with everything you've said, and it's not great listening when I always agree with the caller. So, but I mean, I think you make some excellent points there. I really have to say that. Mark says, Iain, brilliant. The last caller, Luke, is an excellent example of the idiotic loony left. He clearly will never change his views, despite you pointing out so clearly how stupid they are. I didn't call it stupid. May have implied that. Hopefully, he's gone to crawl under whatever rock he came from. Now, we don't need that kind of language, Mark. Everybody is very welcome to phone into the programme. But I'm not going to pretend that I agree with somebody's, shall we say, rather bizarre economic theories, and I'll go out of my way to try and prove them wrong. And then other listeners can make up their minds who's right. Alex is in Wandsworth. Alex, good evening.
Good evening, Iain. I'm a business owner. I employ about 70-odd people. And I think at the start of the hour you said, how does it make you feel the last 48 hours? And very concerned that my politics, I didn't want Starmer. But the lesson surely of the local elections is that growth hasn't happened. Above anything else, people are feeling poor and reactionary. And the only way you get growth, and I do believe in the sort of Lord Tebbit idea that it's about total income into the Treasury, not total tax level. And actually what you need to do is reduce taxes. And the reason I'm so glum over the last 48 hours is none of the alternative candidates that have been viewed look obvious that they would reduce taxes on things like business.
None of them.
And I think Rayner said something like, I back the Prime Minister, but let's make sure living wage goes up. The problem with living wage going up is not that I want people to earn less, but it gives the people at the bottom of society no more buying parity, and it puts someone like me off many more barriers to take someone on. The other thing I'd say is, because I think Starmer was saying that he wants to do different, he wants to move on. Well, another part of the world I'm heavily involved in is the energy sector. I think there's 20 Western world governments that did something on their duties. There's multiple things they did during this crisis to help their businesses, because obviously fuel tax is a tax ultimately on working, or tax on food, whichever way you want to put it, because there's so much transport of fuel. And we decided to do nothing but pocket the increase in increased VAT returns, which goes into hundreds of millions. Now, people are asking what I want in the next 48 hours. I genuinely want the government cabinet to look at each other and think, what areas can we reduce to help the Treasury income go up and actually support business? And just one final point on business, Iain. I do a lot of political conferences, a lot of industry conferences. The amount of times the Secretary of States in the last 18 months send their junior minister or cancel last minute, talk to business. They want to work with government. It's not they don't want to work with government. And basically that's where I'm hitting my head in the last 48 hours. And it feels like a family that's announced to everyone they're divorcing. They then find out they're going to lose the family home and how much it's going to cost. And now suddenly saying, let's stay together. And you have a feeling that you've got a quarter of his MPs that want him out, a quarter that want to stay. And we just end up in stalemate. But none of the big issues like energy prices or driving business growth get addressed. And that's what I'm worried about, Iain.
And you've expressed it very eloquently. Thank you very much, Alex. Simon says, Starmer has to go. He's just put himself up there with the worst and most hated PM ever in Blair. Well, I would contest that. Again, this word hate appears. Let's try and not do that. I mean, fine, call someone incompetent, call them useless, but we don't have to hate people, do we? Anyway, Simon goes on, he's just not fit for purpose. If he stays any longer, a civil war on the streets is going to happen. He just panders to the unions and Islamic voters, plus just panders to the illegal, violent immigrants. A simple, clueless man who doesn't have a clue what the real working class people on the streets think. Well, you're putting yourself up there as a spokesman for all working class people in this country. Not all working class people think that unions are bad. Not all working class people would agree with your phraseology, pandering to Islamic voters or pandering to illegal, violent immigrants. Nobody panders to illegal, violent immigrants. If they're violent, then they deserve all that's coming to them in terms of the justice system. So you make some gross generalisations there, Simon, which don't do you any credit at all. 0345 6060 973. It's 9:45.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, Ben Kentish.
It might not be tomorrow, it might not even be this week, but when Keir Starmer does eventually go, where should Labour turn next?
Ben Kentish at 10. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
If you're looking for a new phone that ticks all the boxes, the Samsung Galaxy A57 and A37 5G have something for everyone. Long-lasting battery life, a triple rear camera, and the power of AI assistance. For a limited time, if you buy a Samsung Galaxy A57 or A37 5G at Vodafone, you can claim a pair of Galaxy Buds 3 FE worth £129, so you can tune out background noise and tune in to the sound you love. But hurry, offer ends 26th of May. Claim Buds 3 FE from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
May we have your attention? Introducing the Volkswagen May event. Get an extra £1,000 towards your finance deposit with Solutions PCP 7.9% APR representative across the range, including the amazing Golf, Tiguan, and all-electric ID3. Major. I said it was in May, right?
Yes.
Ends Monday the 18th of May. Visit your nearest Volkswagen retailer. You may just find the car you've been looking for.
Stop it.
Participating retailers. Excludes T-Roc ID bars and Golf GTI 50. ID3 from stock only. Indemnities may be required. Registered by 30th of August. Volkswagen Finance.
The following is from TfL.
I got loads of flowers the other day. And messages from people I didn't even know. My mates spelled out my name in tea lights. And my mom hung my favourite footy shirt on the railings. Next to the lamppost. Where I got killed. By a nice lady. Just someone who thought it was okay to go a few miles an hour over the limit.
Speeding injures or kills over 1,000 people in London every year. Slow down. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
McDonald's breakfast is turning up the heat with a spicy new twist. Calm down, not that spicy. Breakfast is for savouring, not suffering. Introducing McDonald's breakfast with Frank's Red Hot Ketchup. A spicy breakfast, suitable for the morning. Until 8th of June, served until 11 a.m, subject to availability.
Iain Dale on LBC.
It's 9:48 on LBC. Right, let's go to Rory in Glasgow. Hello, Rory.
How are you, Ian?
Good, thank you. What would you like to say?
Well, I would just like to say, taking the words of the other caller there, that I think Keir Starmer is pandering to himself. I know that people have been talking about the economics of it. I think the economic reverberations are going to ultimately come from the uncertainty that continues if we drag out what ultimately is a foregone conclusion. He will go. He really ought to set a timetable, and he's delaying the inevitable. And it struck me yesterday, I think, that, you said that some of the callers felt sympathy for him. I don't think I felt that for him before. I certainly didn't yesterday, and I definitely don't today.
I don't feel sympathy for him. I mean, I think he's the architect of his own misfortune in many ways, and it's difficult to feel sympathy when someone has acted like that. I mean, there's nothing. The plight that he finds himself in is entirely self-inflicted, and I think that's what a lot of Labour MPs think.
Well, he's really dug his heels in, and I think for someone that claims to be honourable, and actually, as you were saying as well, we forget that he's been leader of the Labour Party for quite some time too. It's not just that he's only been Prime Minister for 2 years. He's had ample time really to demonstrate himself. But he came in, as Prime Minister, as the new government, supposedly as a breath of fresh air or as an antidote to the culture of scandal and sleaze and cronyism and whatever else that he complained about.
And that was part of his appeal, wasn't it?
But look at what he's done, of course. I mean, he's failed on every metric. And I need not even bring up Peter Mandelson. I mean, why this is getting dragged out, I'm not sure. I in some ways, actually, I admire members of the Conservative Party for at least sticking the knives in.
Well, I have to tell you, I was very surprised that the Cabinet just sat there supinely this morning when Keir Starmer made his statement that he was basically going to go on, and not a single one of them raised their hand and said, let me say something here. And even if they had done that, though, he was clearly not going to let them.
No, and I just think this is more about him than it really is about, and this is how he attempts to frame it, which I find appalling. It's in the national interest. This is really about him lumbering on as long as he possibly can so that he can serve a little longer than Liz Truss. And if that's your whole stick, then I think I'm pretty disappointed. I hope you don't mind me saying, because I'm calling from Glasgow, but I heard on Saturday night someone express it beautifully. He's a bit like a prime ministerial jobby that just won't flush.
Oh dear. Well, you've brought the level of the programme down with that, haven't you?
Well, I seek only to raise the tone before I get off the phone, which I will do. I get that he is a weathercock for people's grievance, and I get the points, actually, that people have made about personality politics and how superficial it can all seem. But remember, the Prime Minister, part of his role is to sell those policies, is to sell the government's record. He doesn't have the same level of conviction or oratorical prowess as, I don't know, you mentioned Mrs. Thatcher on Newsnight. He just isn't up to snuff. He's not a consummate politician. He can't perform at PMQs. And as I say, this is a foregone conclusion. He hasn't got a leg to stand on. He's hemorrhaged all his moral authority. He really, really needs to go.
I'll leave you to get on with your flushing, Rory. Thank you very much indeed. Imi says, I used to support Labour, but now I'm a supporter of the Greens. However, we need to give Keir a chance. Well, you clearly haven't given Keir a chance, Imi, if you've already defected to the Greens, so you're going against your own advice. Anyway, Imi continues, we have to look at the root cause of the economic turmoil, and that's Donald Trump and his war with Iran. It's much wider than that. The BOE was aiming for further 2 rate reductions. How do you know that? And inflation was coming down till this war came in front of us. Well, that is true. If Keir took us into the war, it would have been even worse. I know you and I both agree his stance on not involving the US in the war was the right decision. No, I don't necessarily agree with that at all. I don't think we should have gone to war, but I do think we should have let the US use our bases. Anyway, Imi in Romford says we need to give him some time. But Imi isn't giving him any time because Imi has already gone to the Greens. Luke's in Orpington. Hello, Luke.
Hi, from Luke of the left to Luke of the right.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said 29 million would be the saving in wages, and he said, could you privatise water? I've actually worked out in my waiting that you could actually privatise the Imperial Hotel in Blackpool for 29 million. How about that?
Well, I have stayed at the Imperial Hotel in Blackpool. It's not it's not an experience I would care to repeat particularly soon.
And another one is the Grand Hotel in Birmingham. That's worth 29 million.
Yeah, I don't think I've stayed there.
And also, sorry, because I've been waiting for a little while, so I was trying to think. Your fun question at the end of the hour was name a film or two. Mine was Dumb and Dumber, Titanic, The Blair Witch Project.
You should be on the stage, Luke.
It's not why I phoned, but, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
No. Always happy to have suggestions. Thank you. Michael's in Sunderland. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Ian. Before I go to my main subject, hopefully you do the business at the weekend. Okay, against them up the road.
Sorry, say that again.
Before I get into my main subject, hopefully you and your team do the business at the weekend.
Oh, yes. I'm looking forward to my journey to the Toon on Sunday.
Yeah, and hopefully return the favour because we did beat Spurs for you.
Yeah, but you also beat us 3-0 on the opening day of the season, which had you not done that and we had won that match, we would now be above Spurs in the table. So thanks for nothing, Michael.
No, well, you had only the 30-odd games, but anyway, we had to look after ourselves. The main point is, Ian, is also what other people have been saying about the inflation. It was 2% when Labour came in. They took it up to 4%. But my other subject is, in Sunderland, it wasn't a protest vote. It was we'd had 30, 40 years, in me in particular, because I'm in my 60s, of Labour taking our vote for granted and just using and abusing us. So we didn't have anybody else. The Conservatives weren't really going to look after us in the North East. But now Reform have come in, and in particular, we didn't get to have a vote last year. So it was just delayed, if you understand what I'm saying, by 12 months. But if Keir Starmer stays in, he's going to cause more chaos to the economy than if he leaves now. I think what he's hanging on for is to try to get a job in Europe with all them other people who he keeps jetting off to on his tour, rather than looking after us and our interests in this country. It's me, myself and I, not country first, party second. It's me, myself and I. That's what I feel anyway, Ian.
And you sound just like Joan Armour Trading. For those who didn't get that reference, she sang a song called Me, Myself, I, and it's a very, very good song too. Michael, thank you very much indeed. Here it says, good evening, Iain Campbell-Dale. Yeah, that is my middle name. Where is your friend and confidant, the former Home Secretary, delightful Jacqueline Jill Smith? Well, I imagine she's beavering away at her ministerial desk. I don't know. I haven't spoken to her. In fact, it's probably best I don't speak to her on days like this because I might betray confidences. Let's go to Sue, who is in Plymouth. Hello, Sue.
Hiya.
Hello. What would you like to say?
I fought like hell to get Labour, the Labour MP in Plymouth. I was heavily involved in the campaign. I believed in the policies that they brought, that they were going for.
Well, I can sense a big but coming on here.
But when I became a pensioner, I found out because they didn't raise the living allowance, I'm £3 above the pension credit limit. So,
and what's the implication of that?
The implication is that it's quite a lot of money a year for starters. And because I did my work, I was told at 16, you get a job, I paid full stamp from being 16, and that I could retire at 60, it'd be great, yeah. And then I got told I'd be 65, was it? And then I got told I'd be 66. Do you know what I mean? And then, because I paid all my NI, I got full pension, which is great. But the people who didn't fulfil their NI now get pension credit because they're below the limit. So there's that point. Then there's the fuel allowance. Yeah, there's that as well. Then there's a load of other things. But my point is, Keir Starmer made these policies and then brought Rachel Reeves in. And it's Rachel Reeves that needs to go.
Well, I think a lot of people would probably agree with you on that, but she would no doubt argue, look, I've only been Chancellor for 2 years. I couldn't rectify all the mistakes of the past in 2 years. I need longer to do it. But I'm not sure a lot of people would want to give her that opportunity. Well, Sue, thank you very much indeed for your first-time call. Well, thanks a lot for all of your calls and messages this evening. I'll be back tomorrow from 7. There's a brand new episode of Where Politics Meets History, the podcast I do twice a week with Tessa Dunlop. You can find it on Global Player or where you get your podcasts from. If you missed any of this evening's show, you can, of course, listen back on Global Player or the LBC app, where you can stay up to date with all the latest news, videos and opinion. Download the official LBC app for free from your app store now. Coming up at 1 on LBC, it's James Max, but right now, here's Ben Kentish.
Thank you very much, Edie, and hello there. A very, very good evening indeed. Welcome to Late Nights with Ben Kentish right here on LBC. Tonight,
more of the same, flim-flam, flannel, nothing's really going to happen. It's all the same. How many resets can you have?
Keir Starmer clings on, telling his critics to put up or shut up. And it seems, for now at least, they're shutting up. Yet Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, will tomorrow morning hold showdown talks with the Prime Minister. Will that be enough to convince him not to trigger a leadership contest? Either way, I think it's fair to say that Starmer's days in Downing Street are still very much numbered. If and when he does leave, where do you think Labour should turn next? Which direction should it go in? And which potential Prime Minister would be best placed to take it there?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, the Prime Minister's going to meet one of his biggest potential rivals tomorrow as he prepares to face down a backbench rebellion against his leadership. Health Secretary Wes Streeting will speak to Sir Keir Starmer before the King's speech, setting out the government's parliamentary plans. The Labour Party has collapsed into open warfare about the PM's future, with 4 junior ministers stepping down and demanding he do the same. Over 90 90 MPs have publicly called on him to go after last week's catastrophic election results in England, Wales and Scotland. But there is support for the under-pressure Labour leader. He's got the backing of more than 100 backbench MPs and parliamentary private secretaries who've signed a letter. Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy says Keir Starmer has his full support.
We must put country before party. The only person that benefits from the Labour Party navel-gazing in this way is Nigel Farage and the populist right.
After this morning's cabinet meeting, Sir Keir vowed to keep fighting. Labour grandee Lord Blunkett isn't impressed with how his party has been acting.
I think it's a circus. I think that my colleagues in the Commons need to calm down, change their language, think about how it reflects both back in their constituencies and more broadly, and let's try and get a grip of ourselves.
10 people from remote South Atlantic islands connected to the cruise ship outbreak of hantavirus are to be brought to the UK in case they develop the illness. The group from St Helena and Ascension Island had contact with some passengers on the MV Hondius who developed the illness. A man in his 40s has died after being shot by armed police in Bedford. Officers say the suspect presented a weapon after an armed standoff. And Green Party leader Zach Polansky has admitted he may have failed to pay the correct council tax while living on a houseboat in London. He's been under pressure to explain whether it was his primary residence, in which case he'd owe the tax. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 4 points at 10,265. The pound buys $1.35 and €1.15. LBC weather, wind and heavy showers moving in from the west overnight, staying dry in the far south, lows of 1. A windy day with sunny spells and scattered showers tomorrow. These may be thundery in the north and east, but it'll be drier in the south and west. A high of 15 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daisy Steele.
This is LBC.